Chapter 11:15. Friar Yi looked triumphantly at the ashen-faced Yang clan's 4 women. Then he glanced at the small cauldron on top of Yang Huajun's head, and greed flashed in his eyes. However, Friar Yi quickly concealed this greed. Right now, the most important thing was to obtain the 5 elements tail feathers. However, with this little girl in his hands, he was not afraid that they would not submit. Although the idea of seizing the life tail feathers of the 5 Yang clan sisters was part of Friar Mu's plan, who would have thought that he would be able to capture the youngest of the 5 sisters, Yang Shujun, and directly extort them? If he succeeded, then the life tail feathers would naturally belong to him. After all, from the beginning until the end, whether it was Yuan Jinglei or Mu Changxing, neither of them had made the slightest effort to seize the life tail feathers. Didn't that mean that if he obtained the 5 elements tail feathers, the 2 of them would have to obey him? After putting the earth tail feather into his pocket, Yuan Jinglei's eyes inadvertently flashed with a sharp light. Friar Yi then shouted, "Do you really not want her life? Quickly hand over the other 4 tail feathers." The other 3 women looked at Yang Huajun, who had a cold expression, as if waiting for her to make a decision. When Friar Yi suddenly attacked and kidnapped Yang Shujun, causing the 5 elements formation to collapse and causing the vitality tide, Yang Huajun hurriedly took out the small cauldron on top of her head. It was also because of this small cauldron that the vitality tide caused by the collapse of the 5 elements formation did not affect the 4 people. At the same time, in order not to hurt the kidnapped Yang Shujun, Yang Huajun could only control the small cauldron to make the vitality tide avoid Friar Yi and the others. However, after this, Yang Huajun stood there coldly and stared at Friar Yi. The small cauldron was still hanging above her head. If it was not for the fact that Friar Yi had Yang Shujun as a hostage in his hand, it was likely that he would have been terrified by Yang Huajun's gaze. Yang Huajun could not help but say, "Big sister, ha ha ha, wonderful, wonderful." At this moment, a long laugh interrupted Yang Huajun's words. When she turned around, she saw the azure-clothed masked cultivator who had ambushed them twice break through the rainbow light with a few of his subordinates. He said to Cultivator Yi, "Brother Yi is quite capable. You've saved us a lot of effort." When Friar Yi saw the masked cultivator in green, there was an inexplicable light in his eyes, but his face had a happy expression. He said, "Mu Gu came at the right time. These 5 peacocks have been captured by me, so I don't have to worry about them not giving in." At this time, Yuan Jinglei, who had been standing on the other side with his face covered, suddenly said, "Exactly. Brother Yi has already obtained a basic feather from the smallest peacock. So, as long as the remaining 4 peacocks hand over their feathers, it will be a success." When Brother Tsing Yi heard Yuan Jinglei's words, he was startled. When he looked at Friar Yi again, his gaze became somewhat thought-provoking. On the other side, Friar Yi narrowed his eyes and glanced at Yuan Jinglei. Then he smiled at Friar Mu and said, "Exactly. The remaining feathers will depend on Mu Ji's methods." After saying that, Friar Yi released the unconscious Yang Shujun in his arms. Yang Shujun immediately fell to the ground. Friar Yi clapped his hands and stood to the side. Obviously, he wanted to give this bargaining chip to Friar Yi, but he did not take out the earth attribute feather. However, although Friar Yi let go of Yang Shujun, she had fallen to the ground behind these people. Even if Yang Huajun and the others wanted to help, they could not do so. Friar Mu looked at Friar Yi with a smile. He took 2 steps forward and was about to open his mouth to negotiate with Yang Huajun when he suddenly felt something strange behind him. He quickly turned around and saw a figure shrouded in an aqua-blue light screen suddenly jump out from the colorful light screen and rush toward Yang Shujun, who had fallen to the ground. "Who is it?" Friar Mu shouted and stamped his feet. Several tree vines, flashing with different colors, rose from the ground and lashed out at the figure flying toward him. At that moment, Yuan Jinglei and Friar Yi also noticed the situation behind them. They each activated their Dharma idol and were about to attack the person when they suddenly saw Yang Huajun making the first move. Immediately after, the other 3 women followed suit. Clearly, because they had also noticed the situation behind them, Yuan Jinglei, Friar Yi and the other cultivators had no choice but to turn around and block the attacks from the 5 women. The colorful vines summoned by Friar Mu lashed out at the attacker. However, dozens of water ropes suddenly emerged from the aqua-blue light screen. They were like a jellyfish waving its tentacles. The ropes entangled with the colorful vines, but the attacker had already bypassed the obstruction of the colorful vines. A blue light flashed and Yang Shujun, who was on the ground, disappeared. "Scoundrel, you're courting death." Friar Mu was shocked and angry. He leaped up and chased after the attacker. However, he saw that a huge five-colored vortex had suddenly formed around the figure in front of him. The surrounding 5 elements Yuan Qi quickly gathered in the vortex. In the blink of an eye, the 5 elements Yuan Qi within a radius of 10 feet was suddenly swallowed by the vortex. Friar Mu exclaimed again. Such a huge wave of Yuan Qi was immediately transmitted to the entire 5 elements tortoise. The 5 elements Yuan Qi in the entire tortoise began to fluctuate and then gathered in the direction of the vortex. Rumbling sounds immediately sounded from all directions. This was the arrival of the Yuan Qi tide. Not only Friar Mu, but the others were also shocked. Even the practitioners in the 5 elements tortoise who were cultivating in seclusion were alarmed. With such a strong absorption of Yuan Qi, could it be that the Peacock royalty had sent 5 Dharma adepts who belonged to the 5 elements? The 4 Peacock girls also exclaimed in surprise. Such a large-scale activation of the hidden turtle 5 elements Yuan Qi was probably only possible when the 5 of them joined forces to perform the great 5 elements divine light technique. However, they did not expect the person in front of them to be able to do it with his own strength. Who was this person? Could he be a senior of their tribe? Yang Huajun glanced at the distant figure. The small cauldron above his head suddenly began to spin violently. He shouted at his 3 sisters, "Come here quickly!" The 4 girls gathered together and fled to the periphery. Friar Mu and the others did not care about their natal feathers. They all fled in different directions. Obviously, they all had their own methods to resist the vitality tide, but no one dared to chase after the blue figure. The moment the huge 5-element vortex appeared, it mobilized all of the 5-element Yuan Qi in the entire 5-element tortoise vault. Then, the blue-robed cultivator pointed at it and it collapsed. However, at this moment, the Yuan Qi tide had already formed and was gathering towards him from all directions. The blue figure took the opportunity to fly forward. A wine cauldron rose above his head. A little girl bared her fangs and brandished her claws in the cauldron. No one knew what she was complaining about, but streams of light still flowed from the wine cauldron in all directions and enveloped the blue figure. At the same time, the vitality tide in front of him had already rushed towards him. The blue figure was fearless and directly crashed into the vitality tide. Before this, the figure drew a line beside him and a space door suddenly split open. Another invisible vortex began to form. However, this time, the invisible vortex was pathetically small. It was obvious that the blue figure had deliberately controlled its size. Rumble. The surging waves of world essence Qi finally calmed down after they converged. Lu Ping charged out from the periphery of one of the waves that hadn't completely calmed down yet. With a wave of his hand, the small invisible vortex beside him was instantly annihilated. After looking around and confirming that no one was watching, Lu Ping first used his divine sense to penetrate the back mountain of the Golden House. He saw that the entire stem of the Samling 5 elements leaf was shining with a dazzling 5-colored brilliance. Around the 8 leaves was a 5-colored dew, but there was still no trace of the 9th leaf. This made Lu Ping very frustrated. He did not expect that when he completely released the restrictions of the Samling 5 elements leaf and instantly swallowed a large amount of the 5 elements tortoise light, causing a large-scale vitality tide in the entire 5 elements tortoise, it still could not produce the 9th Samling 5 elements leaf. In the wine cauldron at the side, Ling Long had already begun to complain loudly. This time, passing through the vitality tide had really consumed a lot of her energy. At this moment, she was already clamoring to return to the core space to recuperate. Lu Ping put away the wine cauldron, and then, after thinking for a while, he waved his hand towards the ground. A young girl suddenly appeared on the ground. It was Yang Shujun. Seeing that the girl still did not wake up, Lu Ping turned around and bypassed the center where the vitality tide had gathered, and walked in another direction. It was the place where the 4 Yang clan sisters had left. The vitality tide of the entire 5 elements tortoise was triggered, and the emergence of a large-scale vitality tide naturally alarmed most of the cultivators who were cultivating in the tortoise. However, as the vitality tide subsided, the 5 elements light blocked the cultivators' divine sense and vision, causing many cultivators who came to investigate to return in vain. Instead, there were a lot of misunderstandings. Even now, there were still many places where the roar of magic spells and magic weapons could be heard. Lu Ping carefully bypassed these chaotic areas, causing trouble for himself. After a moment, a faint glow appeared in Lu Ping's eyes, and he seemed to see 4 slender and graceful figures not far away. Lu Ping deliberately made some noise, and walked towards the 4 people unhurriedly. He heard Yang Rujuan's voice. "Is it Lu Dao Yu in front?" Lu Ping smiled. "Yes, it is me. I've kept the 4 of you waiting." Lu Ping's words clearly made the 4 vigilant figures in front of him relax a little. While speaking, Lu Ping had already passed through the light and arrived in front of the 4 sisters. "The 4 of you, we meet again." Lu Ping smiled slightly. Fire Peacock Yang Lijun, who was at the side, could not hold back any longer. She hurriedly asked, "Where is my little sister? Big sister said that you had sent her a voice transmission beforehand, so we helped you. Why don't you see my little sister?" Chapter 11:16. 4th Sister, Don't Be Impatient. The one who spoke was the wooden peacock Yang Wanjun. She was a beautiful and gentle woman. Among the 5 Yang clan sisters, she rarely had her own words. However, whenever she spoke up, even Yang Huajun would rarely ignore her. "If Lu Dao hadn't saved little sister, you wouldn't have come to see us." Lu Ping smiled at Yang Wanjun. This time, Lu Ping saw the other side of this woman, a needle hidden in silk floss. Lu Ping flicked his sleeves slightly and Yang Shujun suddenly appeared in front of them. However, she still looked unconscious. "Little sister." Yang Lijun was the first to run over and hold Yang Shujun in her arms. She did not care about Lu Ping at all. If Lu Ping were to attack now, he could easily capture her. She was really impatient. Yang Huajun and Yang Wanjun naturally knew how dangerous Yang Lijun was at the moment. Judging from the fact that Lu Ping had rescued Yang Shujun previously, Lu Ping had obviously been hiding at the side for some time. At this time, Lu Ping already knew about those people's plot against the 5 peacock women. At this time, although Lu Ping had rescued Yang Shujun, no one knew what Lu Ping was thinking. If he also held Yang Shujun hostage to extort their natal feathers, he would be no different from Friar Yi and the masked cultivator in green. However, when they saw that Lu Ping allowed Yang Lijun to carry Yang Shujun back, the other 3 were more or less relieved. They looked at Lu Ping with kindness and gratitude. "Thank you, Brother Lu, for saving us." Yang Wanjun thanked Lu Ping. On the side, Yang Huajun had already taken his little sister from 4th Sister Yang Lijun. He tried to undo the seal on Yang Shujun and save her from the coma. However, Yang Huajun performed several kinds of Dharma spells in succession to no avail. Seeing this, Yang Wanjun also tried a few sets of Dharma spells, but she still could not save Yang Shujun from the coma. Yang Huajun looked up at Lu Ping. Although he did not say anything, his meaning was clear. Lu Ping spread his hands and said, "I didn't do anything. Your sister was already like this when I saved her." Yang Wanjun also said, "Big sister, Lu Dao, you would not do this." Yang Huajun shook his head and said, "That's not what I meant. I was asking if Lu Dao you could help my little sister to wake her up." Lu Ping smiled embarrassedly and said, "I misunderstood. Let's wait and see. I'm not completely confident." Lu Ping stepped forward and smiled at Yang Huajun. Then he penetrated Yang Shujun's body with his divine sense. At such a close distance, Lu Ping was not worried about the distortion of the 5 elements light. After a while, Lu Ping frowned and looked a little solemn. Next to him, Yang Rujuan could not help but say, "Why? Does Lu Dao you also find it difficult?" Lu Ping did not speak. Instead, he formed a seal with both hands. A blue light flashed with a charming halo and hit Yang Shujun's body. Yang Shujun's body suddenly trembled, startling the other 4 women. They all looked at Lu Ping and asked Lu Ping. Lu Ping rubbed his chin. Then, as if he thought of something, he formed another seal with both hands and a thick true essence imprinted on Yang Shujun's body. Oh! Yang Shujun's face showed a painful expression, but she still did not wake up. That's strange. Lu Ping muttered to himself, fellow Yang has clearly regained consciousness, but she still cannot wake up. That Friar Ye's method is very strange. It seems that Miss Yang's true essence bloodline has been cut off, and this has affected the Dharma form in the core space. That's why she can't wake up. Yang Huajun and the others all looked at Yang Wanjun, as if waiting for her to explain something. Yang Wanjun pondered for a moment and said, according to Lu Daoyu, the strange seal that little sister is under has a lot to do with the Lingyun Valley's Yin blood-scraping technique. Lu Ping was shocked. This was the second time he had heard of this Yin blood-scraping technique. When Yang Huajun and the others heard this secret technique, their expressions changed greatly. Yang Lijun even cried out in alarm, Yin blood-scraping technique? Doesn't that mean little sister has already? Before she could finish, Yang Lijun's eyes were about to burst into tears. Yang Wanjun patted her younger sister and said, fourth younger sister, you're always so impatient. You have to listen to older sister finish speaking. I only said that this sealing technique might be derived from the Yin blood-shaving physiognomy technique. Did I say that this person used the Yin blood-shaving physiognomy technique? Besides, we were all present at the time. Did that cultivator surnamed Yi use this technique on Xiaomei? Yang Huajun grunted coldly from the side and said, Yin blood-scraping technique, and his surname is Yi. Then this person is definitely the orange light Yi Jiqiu of the Lingyun Valley's 7 rays of light. What a Lingyun Valley! What a Yi Jiqiu! They actually dared to set their sights on my peacock royalty. Lu Ping hesitated for a moment and said, fellow Taoist Yang, this matter might be related to the orange light Yi Jiqiu, but it might not be the doing of the Lingyun Valley. It might just be a private action of that Yi Jiqiu. Yang Huajun glanced at Lu Ping and said, naturally, it can't be the doing of the Lingyun Valley. These people are divided into at least 3 groups, and that Yi Jiqiu is merely the leader of one of them. If the Lingyun Valley wants to scheme for the life plume feathers of us 5 sisters, then there is naturally no need for them to ally with others. But even so, I, the peacock royalty, will punish them for the crime of not strictly disciplining them. After listening to this, Lu Ping was secretly speechless. Only the peacock royalty would dare to punish the 5 holy lands for a crime. However, this was also because the peacock royalty was in the right. Yang Wanjun was attentive. When Lu Ping and Yang Huajun were talking, she had already detected something from Lu Ping's expression, so she said, my sister, if Lu Daoyu has the confidence, then it's fine. If it's possible, then I hope that Lu Daoyu will lend a hand. Lu Ping smiled bitterly and said, I do have a way, but it's only 70% sure. Yang Huajun immediately said, please help me, fellow Taoist. Lu Ping nodded awkwardly, then pointed a finger at Yang Shujun's chest. Yang Wanjun and the others were startled when they saw this. Only Yang Huajun's expression did not change. When Lu Ping pointed his finger at Yang Shujun's chest, a strong real core along with his own divine sense instantly penetrated into Yang Shujun's core space. At this time, in Yang Shujun's core space, an orange-yellow peacock Dharma power floated listlessly in the center of the core space. There was a strange power in this space. This power was like a blade carried by the wind, constantly brushing against Yang Shujun's Dharma power. Every time this power brushed past, the entire Dharma power would feel as if it had been scraped from head to toe by a blade. Could this be the essence of the Yin blood scraping technique? Lu Ping thought to himself, but the spell did not slow down. The thick real core that was injected into the core space turned into a monstrous wave that instantly broke through the impact of this strange power on the core space. At the same time, Lu Ping's huge wave of real core circled in the space, firmly protecting the peacock core space. At this moment, Lu Ping's divine sense suddenly formed a projection in Yang Shujun's core space that was similar to Lu Ping's dragon core space. This projection opened its mouth and let out a loud roar that resounded through the void, instantly shattering the source of this power. At the same time, it also awakened the listless peacock core space. After the long roar, the projection of the dragon core space dissipated in Yang Shujun's core space. After the peacock core space woke up, only then did it realize that the strange power had been broken. The core space of the peacock core space quickly communicated with the real core space in the blood. Suddenly, several strange lights lit up on Yang Shujun's body, and then the protective barrier was shattered and dissipated. Lu Ping's closed eyes suddenly opened, and he hurriedly withdrew his hand and stepped back. Yang Shujun had already woken up when she opened her eyes. "Little sister, you're awake." Yang Shujun's awakening excited the five sisters for a while. When the five sisters finally calmed down, Yang Shujun had already learned about how Lu Ping had saved her. Her face was red as she came over to Lu Ping to thank him. Lu Ping repeatedly said that he wouldn't dare, and then said, "In fact, I originally came here with a request. Saving fellow Yang was just a coincidence." Yang Huajun still had a calm expression on her face and said, "Fellow Taoist, please speak your mind. As long as the five of us can do it, we will definitely not refuse." Lu Ping said, "Then I will speak frankly. In fact, I originally wanted to ask the five of you for some core space essence." When Lu Ping saw the five women's expressions immediately change, he hurriedly explained, "The core space essence that I am asking for is not much. At most, the five of you will only need to cultivate for a few more days to completely replenish the core space essence that you have lost. It will not have any negative impact on your cultivation base." At this time, the five women's expressions became much better. At this time, Yang Wanjun asked, "If fellow Taoist doesn't need a lot of our core space essence, it is not impossible. I wonder if fellow Taoist can tell me what the core space essence is for? Could it be that fellow Taoist also wants to refine the invisible spirit light fan?" Lu Ping was surprised and said, "Using the invisible core space essence to refine the invisible spirit light fan? I am not refining it, nor do I know how to refine it. I only have other uses for it. However, please forgive me, it is not convenient for me to disclose the uses of your core space essence." Yang Wanjun turned to look at the golden peacock, Yang Huajun, and saw that Yang Huajun had already stretched out her lily-white hand. The golden core space essence began to condense in her palm, gradually condensing into the shape of a drop of water. Yang Huajun flicked the core space essence in her palm, and the golden bead flew towards Lu Ping. Lu Ping carefully used a spirit sealing box to place the drop of core space essence inside. When the other four women saw this, they all condensed a drop of core space essence in their palms or fingertips. Lu Ping used a spirit sealing box to collect the drop of core space essence. Only then did he happily say, "With the help of the five Taoists, my plan may be successful. Thank you, fellow Taoists." It was still Yang Wanjun who said, "Compared to fellow Taoists saving little sister, this is nothing." Chapter 11:17. With the five peacock girls' chi in hand, Lu Ping bade farewell and left. Although Yang Wanjun tried her best to persuade him to stay, at this time, there were countless practitioners in the five elements tortoise plotting against the five sisters. Lu Ping was not willing to implicate himself in the flames of war, so he used the excuse of being in a hurry to train to leave. Although Yang Shujun had lost her life tail feather, the Peacock clan's life tail feather could be regrown after it was lost. Furthermore, it could be regrown twice during one's advancement to the mid-Dharma stage and the late Dharma stage. It was just that it would take a long time for it to reach its current level of power. Lu Ping's request for the five peacock girls' chi was actually a spur-of-the-moment idea. When he saw Friar Yi of the Lingyun Valley pluck out the life tail feather that had turned into a hairpin from the unconscious Yang Shujun's head, an idea came to Lu Ping's mind for no reason. They were all condensing the chi of the five peacock girls. If the chi of the five peacock girls condensed together, would it be able to give the Samling five elements leaf the opportunity to form the ninth leaf? This idea was originally just a spur-of-the-moment thought by Lu Ping. Unexpectedly, after going through this idea in his mind, Lu Ping suddenly added another reason to this idea: spirituality. The Samling five elements leaf grew from the path of planting. Before that, it had always been using the 5 elements of heaven and earth. Other than the chi of the origin, the heaven and earth spirit condensed within the heaven and earth spirit was naturally the spirituality within it. Lu Ping used the Linglong wine cauldron to suppress the chi of the 5 elements and let the Samling 5 elements leaf absorb it. The 5 elements tortoise had enough chi of the 5 elements, but there was not the slightest spirituality within it. The Samling 5 elements leaf was able to advance from a 7-leaf spirit herb to an 8-leaf spirit herb. It was most likely that the spirituality that it had accumulated through absorbing other spirit herbs had been completely used up. After that, Lu Ping took advantage of the chaos in the 5 elements tortoise to attract the chi of the vitality tide to pour into the Samling 5 elements leaf. However, this spirit herb was only able to grow into a 5-colored rainbow, but it was still unable to condense the 9th leaf. Although Lu Ping only obtained a single drop of the original essence from the 5 Yang sisters, it was still more than enough for the 5 sisters. Compared to the 5 sisters, it was insignificant, but the spirituality contained in it was more than enough. As the princesses of the peacock royalty, the cultivation of the 5 sisters was naturally not weak. In Lu Ping's view, the 5 sisters had at least condensed an 8th-grade golden core before advancing to the Dharma phase. Yang Huajun and Yang Wanjun might even have condensed a 9th-grade golden core. The spirituality of their chi of the origin was naturally extremely impressive. After advancing to the avatar realm, a cultivator's essence would experience a drastic increase in strength. Therefore, although the essence the 5 sisters gave Lu Ping was only a small drop, the spirituality contained in it was probably not inferior to a high-grade heaven-class spirit item. Lu Ping's eyes lit up as he stared at the scene in front of him. It was a pity that this chi of the origin was tied to the attribute of the person's inner yuan. If others used it, they could only condense it into a ball of inner yuan. Otherwise, cultivators would not have to painstakingly search for spiritual objects. The Dharma adepts would only need to give up a little bit of the chi of the origin. Although cultivators could not use the chi of the origin, it did not mean that the Samling 5 elements leaf could not be used. After all, the Samling 5 elements leaf was not a cultivator, and there was no inner yuan in its body. Therefore, after the chi of the origin was injected into it, it naturally could not be considered a ball of inner yuan. Even so, Lu Ping was still a little nervous, so he was a little hesitant. But after thinking about it, he did not know when he would encounter such an opportunity again. So, he gritted his teeth and dripped the 5 drops of chi of the origin around the Samling 5 elements leaf according to the positions of the 5 elements. At this time, all Lu Ping could do was wait. Because Lu Ping had previously poured as much chi of the 5 elements into the Samling 5 elements leaf, hoping to accelerate the growth of the 9th leaf, although he did not succeed, the 8 leaves had condensed a lot of 5-colored dewdrops. They dripped into the soil below the Samling 5 elements leaf, gradually forming a pool of 5-colored spiritual liquid. After the 5 drops of chi of the origin merged with the 5-colored spiritual liquid, it was suspended above the Samling 5 elements leaf. At this time, the Wood Luan golden core, which was at the late stage of core forging, suddenly began to rotate rapidly. A mass of essence seeped out from the golden core and fell onto the Samling 5 elements leaf. The Wood Luan golden core itself began to shrink at an extremely fast speed. At this time, Lu Ping suddenly discovered that between the 7th and 8th leaves, a 5-colored light suddenly lit up. Even when Lu Ping used the 3 pure true eyes, he could not see through the situation. Lu Ping had to close his eyes under the stimulation of the increasingly intense light. When he felt the light converge, before he could open his eyes, Lu Ping already felt a small sprout appear between the 2 leaves. Lu Ping was overjoyed. Indeed, his guess was not wrong. The key to the growth of the 9th leaf was the 5 drops of chi of the origin. Perhaps it was because the 5 drops of chi of the 5 elements were originally of the same origin. If it was any other Dharma adept, even if they managed to gather enough chi of the 5 elements, they would not be able to grow the spirit plant due to the conflict between their inner yuan. It was even possible that the plant would be destroyed. Of course, this was just Lu Ping's guess. Since he had succeeded this time, he naturally would not take it seriously. He would experiment with other methods. If he failed, it would not be worth it. As the wood phoenix's golden elixir continued to shrink, the ninth leaf also continued to grow. Fortunately, Lu Ping had accumulated enough qi of the 5 elements to support the growth of this leaf. However, Lu Ping still took the reluctant Linglong out of the core space and used her to suppress the qi of the 5 elements around her. He then guided the qi of the 5 elements into the door of the golden house and poured it into the Samling 5 elements leaf. The excess qi of the 5 elements leaf would condense into 5 colored dewdrops and fall to the ground. These 5 colored dewdrops were formed by the condensation of qi of the 5 elements. Although Lu Ping did not know what other uses these dewdrops had other than to Samling the 5 elements leaf, it was obvious that these dewdrops were extremely rare. There was no harm in storing more. Another 3 months passed. At this time, the 9th leaf had already grown to 6 inches long. Compared to the other 9 inches long leaves, it was only a third of its original length. The time spent on this was far less than the time used to nurture this object with a high-grade heaven-level spirit item. In these 3 months, the tide of vitality occurred a few more times. Every time it erupted, it would cause a chaotic battle in the 5 elements tortoise. Lu Ping even felt the aura of a Dharma adept once. Although the 5 elements light distorted the divine will, making it impossible for Lu Ping to confirm the exact location of the Dharma adept's aura, it was enough to shock Lu Ping. He did not expect that even a Dharma adept would be involved. He did not know if these battles were also because of the 5 elements spiritual light fan. However, what puzzled Lu Ping was that at this time, the 5 peacock girls had obviously become the prey of others. Why did they not hide or think of a way to get out of the 5 elements tortoise in advance to avoid the danger? Instead, they repeatedly triggered the tide of vitality? However, to trigger the tide of vitality, the 5 sisters had to work together to finally form it. Since they triggered the tide of vitality several times, it meant that the 5 sisters had not been separated and had not been captured again. Could it be that the 5 sisters still had some trump card? At this time, they were using themselves as bait to take revenge on the cultivators who were plotting for their own life feather. Or perhaps the cultivators of the peacock royalty in the 5 elements tortoise had rushed over and contacted the 5 peacock sisters. They deliberately set up this trap to take back Yang Shujun's lost life feather and at the same time, vent the anger of the 5 sisters? In the face of this kind of chaotic battle, Lu Ping naturally hid as far as he could. In Lu Ping's view, these cultivators who participated in the chaotic battle were not easy to deal with. The strength and background behind them were not something that Junling could compare with. Fortunately, the entire area of the 5 elements tortoise was large enough. After another 3 months, the 9th leaf finally grew to 9 inches long. Lu Ping was overjoyed. He saw the whole spirit herb suddenly burst into colorful light, followed by the exclamation of Linglong's wine cauldron, "Quickly seal the space entrance, it can't be suppressed anymore." Lu Ping was startled. He immediately noticed that the moment the Samling 5 elements leaf grew to the great perfection, it triggered a turbulence in the light of the 5 elements. Although there was the suppression of the wine cauldron, the turbulence was so strong that the scope of the impact had far exceeded the limit that the wine cauldron could suppress. Suddenly there was a tsunami in the surroundings and the tide of vitality was formed again, and the scale was huge. Linglong shouted, I can't control it anymore." Immediately after, it crashed into Lu Ping's core space. The surrounding tide of vitality was already rushing towards Lu Ping. Lu Ping subconsciously wanted to seal the space entrance of the Golden House, but he found that when the tide of vitality was only 500 feet away from Lu Ping, it suddenly changed direction and swept past both sides of Lu Ping. However, within a 500 feet radius of Lu Ping, there was no strong turbulence at all. There was only the gentle but vast light that was like water gathering towards the Samling 5 elements leaf in the space entrance from all directions. Lu Ping was shocked. He knew that the movement he made this time was too big, even more tyrannical than the scale of the previous tide of vitality. However, at this time, the Samling 5 elements leaf seemed to have entered a crazy stage of absorbing the light of the 5 elements. Moreover, Lu Ping could also feel that the spirit herb seemed to be gradually becoming saturated with the light of the 5 elements. Finally, the multicolored light that filled the sky began to recede, leaving behind 3 finger-sized multicolored light balls. When the light dissipated again, Lu Ping's face lit up with joy and he said, "So it's this thing." On the stem of the Samling 5 elements leaf, there were 3 small fruits that were overflowing with purple qi, slightly bending the 8th and 9th leaves. These 3 small fruits were exactly the same as the seeds that Lu Ping had used to nurture the Samling 5 elements leaf in front of him. Chapter 11:18. Lu Ping placed a spirit sealing box under the 3 seeds. Then, he carefully touched it with his finger and the 3 seeds fell into the spirit sealing box. After closing the box, Lu Ping seemed to be a little worried. He cast a few more spells on the box before putting it away. At this time, Lu Ping finally had time to look at the Samling 5 elements leaf that had stopped absorbing the 5 elements Yuan Qi. At this time, there was a small pool of 5 elements Yuan Qi formed by the 5 elements dew on the ground around the spirit herb. Lu Ping carefully pulled the spirit herb from the ground and was about to put it into the spirit sealing box. Suddenly, he found that in the core space, the Dharma form of the dragon was moving left and right, as if it wanted to come out. It seemed to be interested in the spirit herb that was floating in front of Lu Ping. Lu Ping's heart moved and the Samling 5 elements leaf in front of him suddenly disappeared. When it reappeared, it was already in his core space. At this time, Lu Ping's divine sense discovered that the Dharma form of the dragon had suddenly circled around. Its slender body had already coiled around the Samling 5 elements leaf in the center. The Dharma form only circled around the spirit herb once, as if it was confirming what the thing in front of it was. Then, he saw the Dharma form of the dragon suddenly open its mouth and spit out a perfectly round spirit pearl. It was the pure yang pearl that the Dharma form of the dragon usually used to play. As the pure yang pearl hovered above the 3 spirits 5 elements leaf, a dense wave of pure yang qi suddenly descended, enveloping the spiritual herb. At this time, the Samling 5 elements leaf also seemed to have a spirit of its own. A 5-colored light diffused from the spirit herb, blocking the invasion of the pure yang qi. The 2 suddenly fell into a stalemate. Just at this moment, the Dharma idol of the dragon seemed to be a little impatient. As it circled, one of its claws suddenly reached out and fiercely pressed down on the pure yang pearl. The pure yang qi that it spat out suddenly became 30% denser and immediately suppressed the multicolored light. Then, the pure yang qi continued to press down and immediately wrapped around the entire spirit herb. After a flash of light, the spirit herb had already appeared in the center of the pure yang pearl. At this time, the Dharma form of the dragon finally retracted its claws. The 5-colored light on the Samling 5 elements leaf that was trapped in the pure yang pearl suddenly lit up. Unexpectedly, countless runes suddenly lit up on the pure yang pearl. These were the runes that had been imprinted on the pure yang pearl before. Moreover, the main runes were the runes of the pure yang pearl. The 2 runes of the pure yang pearl continuously wandered on the surface of the pure yang pearl. Then, they intertwined with each other and formed a seal rune array on the surface of the pure yang pearl. This seal once again suppressed the 5-colored light of the Samling 5 elements leaf. Only then did the light of the seal rune array slowly extinguish. Lu Ping's heart stirred. He knew that the 2 pure yang pearl seeds were not destroyed. Moreover, they could still be used. Only then did he slowly let out a sigh of relief. At this time, when the Samling 5 elements leaf condensed its seeds, it had already attracted the attention of many people. Because the density of the 5-colored light was constantly decreasing, Lu Ping could clearly see that a few thousand feet away, there were already cultivators cautiously approaching. Lu Ping did not dare to stay here any longer. After temporarily sealing the space door of the House of Gold, he leaped into the light and headed elsewhere. From the time when the pure yang pearl was triggered to the time when Lu Ping absorbed the Samling 5 elements leaf into the pure yang pearl, it had only been a short while. However, when Lu Ping headed out, he was blocked by 3 people in succession. Apart from one of them who was only at the early Dharma stage and had been severely injured by Lu Ping, the other 2 were at the mid-Dharma stage. Lu Ping used the thin water sword and the shapeless water sword respectively to protect himself. Only then did the two of them retreat. However, when Lu Ping exchanged blows with these three people, the cultivators who were heading towards the pure yang pearl still sensed the direction of the pure yang pearl. One by one, they chased after Lu Ping. Lu Ping hardened his heart and grabbed the struggling Ling Long from the core space. Then, he slapped the wine tripod with all his might. Ling Long's wine tripod began to spin again. Because it was spinning so fast, there was a slight tremor. The five-colored light in the surroundings was once again triggered, and the pure yang pearl was formed again. However, this time, it did not gather towards Lu Ping. Then, as if being pushed by the wine tripod, it formed a huge wave and rushed towards Lu Ping's back. Behind him, there were several cries of shock and curses. Lu Ping ignored them and changed his direction. Once again, he hid in the light and hurriedly left. After much difficulty, Lu Ping finally found a safe place to hide. He cast his divine sense into the golden house and looked at the pool of 5 elemental essence liquid that was left behind after the spirit herbs were plucked. Lu Ping took out the jade essence bottle and poured all the 5 elemental essence liquid into the jade bottle. He poured 3 bottles of 5 elemental essence liquid into the jade bottle before he could absorb all the 5 elemental essence liquid on the ground. He opened the spirit sealing box that contained the Samling 5 elemental leaf seed. The seed that had just been plucked had now turned into a jade green color. Lu Ping took out one of the seeds and planted it in the place where the Samling 5 elemental leaf seed was. Then he placed 5 low-grade profound level spirit items around the seed according to the order of the 5 elements. Then he poured several types of pure yang pearl on the seed. However, Lu Ping still seemed to be a little hesitant. After thinking for a while, he suddenly made up his mind. He took out another spirit sealing box from his storage magic tool. After opening it, there were only 2 pills left, one big and one small. These 2 pills were the only 2 Woodluan gold cores that Lu Ping had left. One was left by an early-stage core forging gold core, and the other was from a mid-stage core forging gold core. Originally, there was still a late-stage Woodluan gold core of the best quality. However, when Lu Ping was trying to grow the 9-leaf Samling 5 elemental leaf, it was used up. Lu Ping took out the early-stage Woodluan gold core. Then he used a secret technique to guide the essence of the gold core to pour into the seed. In just 2 days, the seed of the Samling 5 elemental leaf germinated and grew again, spitting out the first leaf. This was 1 day less than when Lu Ping used to grow the Samling 5 elemental leaf. After Lu Ping replaced the mid-grade profound level spirit items, the second leaf grew again in just 4 or 5 days. Lu Ping raised his eyebrows. He found that in the 5 elements tortoise, the 5 elements glow itself really had the effect of shortening the maturity period of the Samling 5 elemental leaf, but compared with the Woodluan gold core, it seemed to be a little lacking. Lu Ping once again replaced 5 high-grade profound level spirit items. However, only 7 or 8 days later, the entire 5 elements tortoise suddenly began to shake violently. This time, it was not because someone was fighting, or someone had triggered the vitality tide, but because the entire tortoise was shaking. Lu Ping was startled. He knew that this was a sign that Xiang Shiping had told him that the 5 elements tortoise was going to hide in the void again. At this time, it was the time for the cultivators who entered the tortoise to leave. As Lu Ping flew out, he took out a talisman from his storage device and activated it. A strange wave suddenly spread out. After about half an hour, the wave returned again. Then, Lu Ping seemed to have determined the direction and turned to run forward. The talisman in Lu Ping's hand was left by Ba Gui Xiang Shiping. If Xiang Shiping hadn't left it to Lu Ping wouldn't even know that the Ba Gui clan could actually communicate with each other through a secret method in the 5 elements tortoise. After Lu Ping activated this talisman, it would soon form a connection with Xiang Shiping, so that Lu Ping could quickly determine his position and meet up with him as soon as possible. However, the Ba Gui clan obviously had another gathering place in the 5 elements tortoise, because from beginning to end, Lu Ping didn't find any trace of a Ba Gui in this tortoise. Obviously, as the direct descendant of Taoist Gei, the Ba Gui clan had another gathering place in the 5 elements tortoise that was unknown to outsiders. Moreover, under the pervading light of the five elements tortoise, this talisman could still be activated and pointed out the location of Xiang Shiping to Lu Ping. Perhaps only the Bagre clan could do this. Along the way, Lu Ping also saw many cultivators flying out of the tortoise. Most of them had covered their faces, and when they met, they would glance at each other for a while before going their own way. At this moment, a thunderous noise came from the light hundreds of meters away from Lu Ping. Lu Ping paused and saw a huge ball of lightning form in the direction of the noise. In Lu Ping's eyes, even the light of the five elements tortoise couldn't cover the dazzling color of this lightning ball within hundreds of meters. This was the method of the Yuan clan. Only the Yuan clan, which inherited the only lightning bloodline of Pengdaoren, could produce such a powerful lightning magic. A cyan light flashed across Lu Ping's eyes. As Lu Ping fused the 9 types of water together, the power of the 3 pure eyes grew stronger and stronger, while the cyan light in his eyes grew dimmer and dimmer. Hundreds of meters away, a figure stood motionlessly in the sky filled with lightning, while another figure was fleeing in a sorry state. It was none other than Yuan Jinglei. People of the Yuan clan, good, your Yuan clan has really done a good deed. Do you really think that the words left by Pengdaoren back then can bind my peacock race? The standing figure sneered. After saying that, a cyan light flashed out from the figure's back to instantly suppress the lightning. In the face of the cyan light, even the surrounding 5 elements tortoise paled in comparison. After breaking Yuan Jinglei's lightning magic, the figure did not get up to give chase. Instead, he suddenly turned to look at Lu Ping. His gaze pierced through the 5 elements tortoise, seemingly wanting to reach Lu Ping. Chapter 11:19. Spying on a great cultivator was obviously not something to be proud of, at least not now. Although Lu Ping had dodged quickly enough, the great cultivator of the Peacock clan obviously did not want Lu Ping to escape so easily. A green light broke through the 5 elements light and chased after Lu Ping. Lu Ping hurriedly looked behind him and saw that the great cultivator did not chase after him. He immediately breathed a sigh of relief. However, seeing the green light that followed him like a shadow, Lu Ping felt that it was best to wait for the great cultivator to get far away before dealing with it. "Hey, brother Lu, what are you?" Su Jin suddenly rushed out of the 5 elements light. Seeing that Lu Ping was being chased by a green light, he shook the long sword in his hand and rushed forward to help. Lu Ping hurriedly said, "Brother Su, wait. Yi Zhiqiu was now so regretful that he even wanted to die. In fact, at this time, he was indeed facing the threat of death. However, looking at the way he was running away, it was obvious that although he was regretful, he had not reached the point where he wanted to die. Behind him, a great cultivator of the Peacock royalty was leisurely walking behind him. If it were not for the fact that Yi Zhiqiu was already at the middle Dharma stage and the 5 elements tortoise was blocking him, he would probably have been caught by this great cultivator by now. Since the last time Yi Zhiqiu kidnapped Yang Shujun and obtained the life plume feather from her, he could already sense that Mu Changxing and Yuan Jinglei were alienating and wary of him. However, Yi Zhiqiu did not care and continued to work with the 2 of them to search for the whereabouts of the 5 peacock girls. After Yang Shujun lost her life plume, the 5 elements formation formed by the Yang clan sisters could still operate. However, with the addition of Yang Shujun, the 5 elements formation often collapsed. Almost every time it collapsed, it would cause a tide of vitality. Fortunately, Yang Huajun also had a spiritual treasure imitation of the Qianquan wine cauldron that could be used to adjust the 5 elements primordial qi. It had the same effect as the exquisite wine cauldron. Every time, the 5 sisters could safely escape from the essence qi tide. Perhaps it was because the 5 sisters were eager to improve their cultivation, or perhaps they were practicing some secret technique of the peacock race. Although they caused such a big commotion every time, the 5 sisters still persevered. Finally, after the 5 elements formation collapsed, they were blocked by Yi Zhiqiu and a few helpers. However, the 5 sisters were obviously not weak. After forming the 5 elements formation, they could even display the supreme magical power, the great 5 elements light, which was ranked 2nd in the cultivation world. Even if Yang Shujun lost her life plume feather and Mu Changxing had a deep understanding of the five elements formation, it was not easy for everyone to capture the five sisters. Of course, the most important reason was that the three of them and the cultivators under them were unwilling to use their full strength. They did not want to expose their identity or the sect behind them, which would bring them endless trouble. Therefore, the encirclement this time eventually allowed the five sisters to escape. However, the second vitality tide was about to arrive again. This time, the well-prepared crowd immediately circled the area and blocked the five sisters again. At this moment, a nightmare suddenly befell them. The three great cultivators of the Peacock royalty suddenly appeared. Except for Mu Changxing, Yuan Jinglei, and Yi Zhiqiu, the other cultivators who surrounded the five sisters were all killed by the three great cultivators. Orange Light Yi Zhiqiu, one of the 7 rainbow lights of the 3rd-generation cultivators of the Lingyun Valley. How dare you? Do you really think the old man doesn't know who you are? Yi Zhiqiu's heart sank when he heard that, but the light under his feet sped up. Hand over the life plume feather and the old man will spare your life. The edge of the 5 elements hidden tortoise was very close. Yi Zhiqiu was overjoyed. The 5 elements hidden tortoise was about to disappear. This was the time when the 5 elements fog outside the Taoist rite was the thickest. Moreover, Mara's army was hidden in the fog. Although it was dangerous, it was a good opportunity for Yi Zhiqiu to get rid of the people behind him. As long as he was not caught, the Peacock royalty would not be able to prove that he was involved in this matter. The Lingyun Valley would not give in and would try to rescue and protect him. The great cultivator from the Peacock clan behind him clearly realized that the situation inside the 5 elemental fog was probably even worse than the situation inside the invisible dojo. As such, he could not help but increase his speed. Yi Zhiqiu, who was in front of him, suddenly took out a talisman and slapped it on his body. After a flash of light, the 5 elemental yuan qi around Yi Zhiqiu was suddenly isolated. Yi Zhiqiu stretched out his hand and drew a line in front of him. A spatial door immediately formed, and Yi Zhiqiu stepped into the spatial door. When he reappeared, he was already outside the 5 elemental fog. He actually dared to use the space magic in the invisible Taoist rite. What kind of talisman is this? I let him escape. The great cultivator came to the place where Yi Zhiqiu was standing. The effect of the talisman suddenly disappeared. The 5 elements light that was pushed away immediately flowed back. Although it did not form a tide of qi, it was still extremely turbulent. However, the great cultivator just waved his sleeve casually, and the turbulent qi immediately disappeared. The rules of the wood element of Wuxing school really live up to their reputation. After Mu Changxing retreated for a distance, he saw that the other 2 Laozu and the 5 women from the Yang clan had not caught up to him. He actually stopped running. Instead, he turned around and fought with the great cultivator who was chasing him. He fought all the way to the edge of the 5 elements dojo and successfully met up with a ba turtle. Along the way, although Mu Changxing was always at a disadvantage, he was never completely suppressed. This made the great cultivator from the Peacock clan who was chasing after Mu Changxing exclaim in admiration. I don't know who you are talking about, but it sounds like you think I am a very powerful cultivator. Mu Changxing stood on the back of the ba turtle and walked into the depths of the 5 elements fog. He turned around and said to the great cultivator who was standing at the edge of the Taoist rite dojo. The great cultivator was not surprised by Mu Changxing's denial. He just smiled and did not chase into the 5 elements fog. Brother Xiang, it seems like the rumors are true. Even great cultivators do not dare to enter the 5 elements fog alone when the Taoist rite dojo is closed. Mu Changxing said to the ba turtle under his feet. On the other side of the Taoist rite dojo, the great cultivator who was fighting with Yuan Jinglei earlier stood there. As he listened to Mara's howls in the 5 elements fog, he could not help but frown and say, "It seems like the way back is not going to be easy." Fortunately, the 5 girls are quite capable and managed to invite a ba turtle. This way, it will be much easier for Mara, who has gone crazy because of the disappearance of the 5 elements dojo. At this moment, the great cultivator made a sound of surprise and turned to look in the other direction of the Taoist rite dojo. He said, "This is interesting. I didn't expect that there would be so many young people with potential in the House of Tortoise this time. They are only at the early Dharma laws stage, but they are able to break through the old man's pursuing shadow sword. After saying that, he no longer cared about that direction and headed in another direction. The 5 Elements Tortoise Dojo trembled more and more violently. Lu Ping and Su Jin flew forward again for a while. Estimating that they had put enough distance between them and the great cultivator, Lu Ping then turned around and slashed at the green light that was chasing after them like a shadow. Amidst the clanging sound, although the green light slowed down, it still chased after Lu Ping. On the contrary, the thin water sword not only failed to hit the green light, but was also almost shaken off. "Ha, Brother Lu, this is the famous supreme magical power of the peacock race, the pursuing shadow secret technique, and the person who attacked it seems to be a great cultivator. If you want to break this magical power so easily, aren't you taking it too lightly?" Su Jin not only did not step forward to help, but looked at Lu Ping, who was forced into a somewhat embarrassing situation by the green light, with a smile. Lu Ping snorted coldly, and the Changlu sword was also unsheathed. After the two swords combined, they immediately displayed a sword light vortex. The power of the supreme magical power was enough to crush the green light in front of them, but this earth-shattering movement also forced Lu Ping and Su Jin to quickly leave the place. "Brother Xiang." Not long after, the two of them finally found Xiang Shiping in his human form. At that moment, Xiang Shiping seemed to be in high spirits. Even his figure seemed taller and mightier. Clearly, he had gained a lot from this period of closed-door cultivation. "Guys, the way back isn't as easy as coming here, because the sudden disappearance of the 5 Elements Tortoise will make the devil Luo hiding in the 5 Elements fog outside the Tortoise fall into madness. At that time, it won't be surprising if Azura attacks us. So, I think it's better for us to team up and rush out together." After seeing the two, Xiang Shiping first said with a solemn expression. Lu Ping and Su Jin looked at each other, and Su Jin said with a smile, "Brother Xiang, I have heard a little about Mara going crazy because of the disappearance of the 5 Elements Tortoise Dojo, but what about fellow Taoist Xiang Jingyu and another fellow Taoist who was born in the Yuan family? Didn't they agree to meet up and rush out of the 5 Elements Tortoise Dojo together?" Xiang Shiping shook his head and said, as soon as the two of them finished their closed-door training, they were called away by the person who invited them. As for the specific reason, old Xiang doesn't know. So now, only the 3 of us are left. To be honest, with just the 3 of us in the 5 Elements fog, the danger is not small. In the 5 Elements fog, Yijiqiu spat up blood. He looked at the 4 or 5 Jade Mara surrounding him with despair in his eyes. In the distance, there were a few blood Mara eyeing him, and further away, there were dozens of Mara of different sizes blocking his escape routes. Why are there so many evil Luos gathered here? Is there a need to do this just to deal with me? Yijiqiu suddenly thought of this, and then he fell into complete darkness under the attack of a Jade Shura. The endless fog did not disappear with the disappearance of the 5 Elements Tortoise Dojo. Only the sound of the rising and falling of the seawater could be heard. At this time, Yuan Jinglei suddenly broke through the fog and appeared there. At the same time, his eyes seemed to be looking for something. Chapter 11:20. After the disappearance of the 5 Elemental Tortoise, the Mara in the 5 Elemental fog would often become crazy due to the disappearance of the 5 Elemental origin energy. This caused the cultivators who returned from the 5 Elemental fog to face a more dangerous situation than when they entered. Therefore, very few people dared to enter the 5 Elemental fog alone without Bagui. Yijiqiu was an example. As one of the most outstanding 7 rainbow lights among the 3 generations of cultivators in the Lingyun Valley, in order to escape the pursuit of the great cultivator of the Peacock Royalty, he had to use his spatial ability to escape into the 5 Elemental fog. Unexpectedly, he was besieged by several Blood Mara and 4 or 5 Jade Mara. In the end, he could only die with hatred. However, after Yijiqiu died, not only was his body not damaged by Mara, but it was also preserved extremely well. This was quite strange. What was even more strange was that not long after Mara retreated, Yuan Jinglei actually appeared in the fog. A moment later, Yuan Jinglei's eyes lit up as if he had discovered something. He pointed at the seawater, and a bolt of golden lightning shot out, forming a golden claw in the air. The claw scooped up Yijiqiu, who had been drained of blood, but whose corpse was still intact. Yijiqiu's eyes lit up as he looked at Yuan Jinglei. Yuan Jinglei's gaze immediately focused on the storage bag on Yijiqiu's waist. After opening it in his hand, Yuan Jinglei's divine sense penetrated it, and a moment later, an earthy yellow feather appeared in his hand. Yuan Jinglei looked at the feather in his hand, and a greedy look flashed through his eyes. He mumbled to himself, "Cousin, so what if you have inherited the 7-treasure Thunder Gourd? Once I get my hands on the shapeless spirit light fan, it will be hard to say who will be in charge of the Yuan family in the future." In the distance, the sound of surging tides once again came from the surface of the sea. The fog of the 5 elements slowly broke apart, and a huge creature appeared in front of Yuan Jinglei. Yuan Jinglei, who had already put away his yellow life feather, did not seem to be surprised by the arrival of the creature. He just quietly floated in the colorful fog like an immortal. "Young Master Thunderclap." Mr. Wen bowed to Yuan Jinglei on the tyrant tortoise. He seemed to be in a sorry state at this time. It was obvious that he had experienced a great battle in the dense mist of 5 elements. "Yes, Mr. Wen. Did you come to the South China Sea because of Cousin Feixiang's orders?" Yuan Jinglei asked with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. It seemed as if he was already aware of Mr. Wen's arrival. Mr. Wen didn't seem to be surprised by Yuan Jinglei's question and replied, "Young Master Thunderclap misunderstands. I came to the South China Sea in order to visit the Dark Space Sea. I didn't expect that the 5 elements hidden tortoise would open, so I came here first. I didn't expect to run into young Master Thunderclap on the island. I heard the young master's thunderous abilities and chased after you. Is there anything I can do for you?" Yuan Jinglei raised his eyebrows and replied, "Thank you for your good intentions, young Master Thunderclap. However, I can handle myself here. Please do as you please." Mr. Wen stared blankly for a moment before asking, "Young Master Thunderclap, did you come to the South China Sea alone? Didn't Mr. Yu come with you?" Yuan Jinglei's expression turned cold when he heard Mr. Yu's name. He, Yijiqiu, and Mu Changxing had led the cultivators to surround and kill the 5 women of the Yang clan. However, they had been ambushed by the 3 cultivators of the Peacock royalty and had lost their lives. Yuan Jinglei was lucky enough to escape the pursuit of a great cultivator. However, his 3 Dharma adepts were dealt with by the great cultivator. His most capable helper, Mr. Yu, had perished. Since you have to go to the Dark Space Sea, you should hurry. You don't need to pay attention to the matters here. The Mara clan is nothing in my eyes. Mr. Wen's lips twitched, but he didn't say anything in the end. He exchanged a few words with Ba Gui, and his figure was once again submerged in the 5 elements fog. Yuan Jinglei watched as Mr. Wen's figure disappeared from his line of sight. He sneered and said, "In the end, it's just a dog." The sounds of battle rang out from within the mist once more. Yuan Jinglei took a moment to determine his direction, and with a flash of lightning beneath his feet, he disappeared into the mist. Amidst the fog, Su Jin patiently asked Ba Gui, "Brother Xiang, how is it that no one has discovered the area in the training hall of your Ba Gui clan in the past tens of thousands of years?" Xiang Shiping chuckled and said, "Brother Su, you've asked the same question many times. I've already told you that Taoist Gui has indeed left behind some legacies for our Ba Gui clan in the training hall, but these things are very vague. At most, they can help the Ba Gui clan practice faster. However, compared to the situation in the training hall of your clan, it's only a little better. There's really nothing much to say." Su Jin still didn't give up. "So, there really is a space in the training hall that's specially left for the Ba Gui clan?" Xiang Shiping said with dissatisfaction, "What do you mean, special treatment? If my Ba Gui clan has Taoist Gui's special treatment, wouldn't that mean even the Peacock Royal clan and Jade Sea Spirit Snake clan will be suppressed by us? Brother Su, you're thinking too much." Su Jin chuckled and said, "Brother Xiang, what you said is not true. The Ba Gui clan is lazy and not good at fighting. They rarely make enemies with others, which is why the cultivation world pays less attention to the Ba Gui clan." In times of crisis, the peacock royalty and green sea snakes may not be much stronger than the Ba Gui clan. Otherwise, there are many demon clans in the South Sea. Why is the Ba Gui clan the only one? Xiang Shiping was about to say something when Su Jin continued, "Don't talk to me about the peacock royalty in the boundless mountains and the green sea snakes in the East China Sea. Although the peacock royalty is known as the top demon clan, there are 7 or 8 top-level demon clans in the boundless mountains, 4 or 5 large tribes, and no less than 20 or 30 small and medium-sized tribes. The same is true for the East China Sea, with 3 tribes and 12 clans. Except for the green sea snakes, the other 14 forces are also medium-sized forces. Whether it's the boundless mountains or the East China Sea, the demon clans themselves are intricate and restrict each other. Is this the case in the South China Sea?" On the other side, Lu Ping was cultivating with his eyes closed. Although he had heard every word of the conversation between the two, he didn't show any expression on his face. Xiang Shiping smiled bitterly and said, "Brother Su, some things may seem like that to you, but it's not what you think it is. Brother Su comes from the Purple Sun Palace, one of the 5 sacred lands of Middle-earth and one of the 6 great sects of the cultivation world. How many things in the cultivation world can you miss out? I can only say, Brother Su, your way of thinking is too black-bellied." Su Jin chuckled and said, "Black-bellied? I hope my way of thinking is a little darker." At this moment, Lu Ping suddenly opened his eyes and said, "You too, don't you think our journey has been too smooth?" The two of them immediately fell silent. After a while, Xiang Shiping was the first to speak. "That's right. Logically speaking, Mara's army, which has been reintroducing the 5 elemental hidden tortoise into the void, should have gone crazy by now. Why is it that we haven't encountered a single blood condensation cultivator after walking in the fog for nearly 4 hours?" As soon as he finished speaking, the aftershocks of a battle came from the fog in front of them. Apart from that, they could also hear Mara's roars. Su Jin laughed and said, "Looks like our luck is pretty good. We've only encountered Mara's army after walking for half a day." After saying that, he looked at Lu Ping. Obviously, he wanted to ask if Lu Ping wanted to take a detour or go forward to take a look. Lu Ping nodded and said, "Let's go and take a look." The 3 of them concealed their appearance and moved towards the direction of the battle. After a while, Su Jin was the first to exclaim, "Mu Changxing, it's him." Lu Ping naturally saw Mu Changxing, who was fighting with Mara in the distance. At this time, Mu Changxing no longer concealed his appearance. Although Su Jin recognized him, he didn't know that the green-clothed masked cultivator he encountered when he entered the 5 elemental hidden tortoise to save the 5 girls from the Yang clan was Mu Changxing. Although Lu Ping guessed that the green-clothed masked cultivator was one of the 5 great Juzi of Wuxing school, Mu Changxing, it was only a guess. Now that he heard Su Jin's conclusion, he naturally had no more doubts. However, Su Jin didn't know that the person in front of him was the green-clothed masked cultivator from before. "Fellow Taoist over there, can you help me? I'm Mu Changxing of Wuxing school." Mu Changxing's strength was really extraordinary. While fighting with Mara, he still had the time to pay attention to the situation around him. Not long after Lu Ping and Su Jin found him, he also discovered their hiding place. "We have to save him." After saying that, the long sword in Su Jin's hand made a long cry and he had already rushed over. "We have to save him." The one who spoke was Xiang Shiping. At this time, the tyrannical turtle under Mu Changxing's feet was under the siege of several blood Mara. If it wasn't for the tyrannical turtle's unparalleled defense, it would have been destroyed by several enemies of the same level. It would have been impossible for it to struggle like it was now. At this time, Mu Changxing was surrounded by 3 Jade Shura and 1 Jade Demon. In addition, there were 6 or 7 blood Mara next to him. While Mu Changxing was helping to block the tyrannical turtle under Mu Changxing's feet, Mu Changxing was still able to persist in such a situation. It showed that this person's strength was really extraordinary, especially his true core, which was rare. It was no wonder that in the world of cultivation, among the 5 Juzi of Wuxing school, the Juzi of the fire element, Huo Wuliang, was the strongest, the Juzi of the earth element, Tu Gaoshan, was the strongest, and the Juzi of the wood element, Mu Changxing, was the strongest. The long sword made a long cry, but the sword light had already arrived before the sound. The ice brocade sword in Su Jin's hand killed a blood Shura unexpectedly, and then circled a jade Shura in the middle of the flying sword. Lu Ping's two swords pierced through the air, but he blocked the most annoying jade demon. Xiang Shiping went on a rampage, knocking away two blood Mara and forcing a jade Shura to temporarily dodge. Mu Changsheng took the opportunity to break through the siege of the remaining three jade Shura and meet up with Su Jin and Lu Ping. Chapter 1121. Oh, it's Brother Su from Ziyang Palace. Thank you, Changsheng. Mu Changsheng naturally recognized the frost brocade sword, one of the 6 legendary swords of Ziyang Palace. Although he was slightly surprised, he was also overjoyed. However, what made him even more curious was the swordsman who had come with Su Jin, who had trapped a jade Shura in the light of his flying sword. Ziyang Palace had really been hiding more and more after being humiliated by Xiao Baiyu. Since when did they have another swordsman who was comparable to the 6 legendary swords? And from the looks of it, he was only at the early Dharma stage. Stop talking nonsense. Let's get rid of these Mara first before catching up. Otherwise, if more come, we'll be trapped. Ziyang Palace and Wuxing School were both part of the 5 Holy Lands. Su Jin and Mu Changsheng were of similar status. Naturally, he would not be courteous to him. Moreover, now was not the time to be courteous. The 3 of them together could fend off 5 Jade Mara. The strong defense of the 2 Ba tortoises made it easy for a few blood Mara to attack. After fighting for a while, the 5 of them finally broke through. With the 2 Ba tortoises leading the way, they quickly rushed out of the 5 elements fog. Along the way, they did not encounter another blood demon Luo. When the fog dissipated and the sun hung high in the sky again, everyone returned to the boundless blue sea of the South Sea. It was really amazing. This is really strange. Su Jin said calmly, we did not encounter a single Mara along the way. Could it be that all the Mara went for Mugu? But it doesn't look like it. No matter how few Mara there are in the 5 elements fog, there shouldn't be only a few Jade Mara. A trace of doubt flashed across Mu Changsheng's face, and then he said, Brother Su, you must be joking. It's all thanks to Brother Su, this friend, and Brother Xiang that I was able to safely exit the 5 elements fog this time. By the way, I haven't asked your names yet. I'm Mu Changsheng from the Wood Element School of Wuxing School. Lu Ping maintained his composure and said with a smile, You flatter me. This Brother Gui we invited is Brother Xiang Shiping. I am Lu Tianping of Beihai. Mu Changsheng came to a sudden realization and said, So it's Brother Lu from the North Sea. I've long heard that there's a water sword immortal in the North Sea, a famous sword cultivator among our peers. Now that I've seen you today, you really do live up to your reputation. No wonder Brother Xie from the Purple Sun Palace and Brother Sang from the Spirit-Taming Beast sect hold you in high regard. Lu Ping smiled faintly and said, Mu Gu is overpraising me. All right, enough with the small talk. Su Jin impatiently interrupted their compliments and said, The 5 elements hidden tortoise has hidden in the void. I'm afraid the 5 elements fog will disperse soon. When that time comes, Mara's army will definitely wreak havoc in the South Seas cultivation world. We can't stay here any longer. I'm going back to the Central Plains. Brother Lu, what are your plans? Are you willing to stay at the Purple Sun Palace for a while? Lu Ping smiled and shook his head. I've told Brother Su before that I'm going to the Dark Space Sea. Su Jin slapped his forehead and said, Yes. Look at my memory. Let's part ways here. When Brother Lu comes to the Central Plains in the future, don't forget to visit the Purple Sun Palace. You have more than one good friend. After that, without waiting for Lu Ping to speak, Su Jin's figure flashed and he was already dozens of miles away. After a few more flashes, he disappeared into the horizon. At this time, Mu Changsheng also smiled and said, I'm also going back to the Central Plains. Brother Lu, if you have any needs in the Central Plains in the future, you can come to the Wuxing School and I will do my best to help. After that, he exchanged a few words with Ba Gui, then cupped his hands towards Lu Ping and flew away. Xiang Shiping and Mu Changxing didn't seem to be too familiar with the Ba Gure that had come with them. The two of them only had a brief conversation before the Ba Gure left. Lu Ping smiled and said, "Brother Xiang, are you tired and looking for a place to sleep?" Xiang Shiping smiled and said, "How would I dare to sleep now? If the lightning tribulation strikes while I'm sleeping, I'll be struck into a turtle. It just so happens that I'm going to the Dark Space Sea to find a senior and undergo my first lightning tribulation there. Since we're going the same way, I'll give you a ride." The Dark Space Sea became famous in the cultivation world because of the Kongming sect. Although the Dark Space Sea was called a sea area, it was actually just a coral reef that covered an area of less than 1,000 miles. It was not much bigger than an inner lake. However, ever since the sea area was chosen by the Dark Space Sea as the location for the establishment of the Kongming sect, generations of formation masters, formation grandmasters, and formation grandmasters of the Kongming sect constantly built new formations, repaired old formations, and improved the weaker ones. As a result, the formations in this sea area were connected to each other, and after thousands of years, there were traces of formations everywhere. Even though the various sects in the outer seas had joined forces to encircle and annihilate the Kongming sect, the formation that covered the entire Kongming Sea could not be completely eradicated. This was because the various sects had used forceful methods to break through the Kongming formation in order to attack the Kongming sect, causing the entire formation to collapse and become entangled with each other. It was even more difficult to eradicate it. It was not that the various sects from the outer seas could not do it, but the price was too high. To complete this task, not only did they need to gather the formation grandmasters and formation grandmasters of the various sects from the outer seas, it would take decades or even centuries to completely clean up the remnants of the formations in this sea area. It was not worth it. Furthermore, these formations were the culmination of the thousands of years of Kongming sect's formation masters, and could be said to be the pinnacle of formations in the entire cultivation world. Not a single formation master would be willing to dismantle such a living formation specimen. To formation masters, the Dark Space Sea was their holy land. Thus, in the thousands of years after the Kongming sect was annihilated, a continuous stream of formation cultivators from the South Sea, the East Sea, the Central Plains, and other places came to study the remnants of the formations left behind by the Kongming sect and verify what they had learned. However, these formations would gradually lose their effectiveness with the passage of time. Then, some formation master began to study the remnants of the formations and gradually began to maintain the remnants of the formations that he could analyze, hoping that the remnants of the formations would be preserved forever. Unexpectedly, this behavior was recognized by many formation masters. After that, an unknown formation master would often leave behind a formation that he was proud of after leaving the underworld space sea. This matter gradually became a custom. After that, for thousands of years, the formations in the underworld space sea did not weaken in the slightest as time passed. Instead, they became more and more strict and unpredictable. Lu Ping stood on the outskirts of the Coral Sea and hovered higher and higher. From his vantage point, he looked down at the space nether sea that spanned 1,000 miles. The entire space nether sea was shrouded in various array formations. Under the sun's rays, the entire space nether sea was shrouded in a layer of illusionary colors. Although Lu Ping had never seen the encampment of the Crystal Palace, the bizarre scene before Lu Ping looked more like a huge crystal palace to him. Lu Ping was not in a hurry to enter the Dark Space Sea. Instead, he found a spot on the outskirts of the coral reefs and began to isolate himself. Lu Ping was naturally not here to train. At this time, his level of training had already reached the limit of what an early Dharma adept could achieve. Once he started training, it was highly likely that he would attract his first lightning punishment. Lu Ping now naturally wanted to make as many preparations as possible in order to enter the Dark Space Sea. Although he did not specialize in formations, his path companion was Junling's current second-ranked formation master. Under her influence, she had more or less dabbled in formations. Of course, just based on this alone, Lu Ping was completely unqualified to enter the Dark Space Sea. What Lu Ping was really relying on was the 8 dark space essence that he had found in the Spirit Stone mine on Yuanling Island. These 8 dark space essence were the true keys to entering and exiting the dark space maze. At that time, along with the 8 dark space essence, there was also a jade scroll. This jade scroll did not record the legacy of the dark space sex formations. However, it clearly explained how to use the dark space essence and how to enter and exit the dark space maze. However, these records were only about the situation of the dark space sect thousands of years ago, before the dark space maze was destroyed. At this time, the dark space maze had long collapsed, and it was unknown whether the dark space maze could be used again. Furthermore, besides the remains of the dark space maze, there were many remnants of formations left behind by past masters who had studied the dark space maze. In order to truly get close to the dark space maze, Lu Ping first had to break through these remnants left behind by later masters. Of course, this was not all that Lu Ping had up his sleeves. The reason why he had isolated himself was actually for 2 things. One was to completely condense the 3 pure eyes, and gather the 9 types of special water. With the jade sobering eye fluid as the main body, he would construct a truly remarkable eye technique. Although this would still not be like Ape Taoist in the past, who could see through everything with his spiritual eyes, at least many of the flaws in the dark space maze would be revealed in front of the 3 pure eyes. The second thing was to craft talismans, to craft the restriction-breaking talisman. Although Lu Ping's talent in crafting talismans was average, it was the first technique he had mastered after becoming a cultivator. In the past 200 years, along with the growth of Lu Ping's cultivation, Lu Ping's talisman crafting technique had also been forcefully honed by Lu Ping to a certain level. At least in Tian Shui Laozu's opinion, the current Lu Ping could barely be considered as a master talisman crafting. All these years, Lu Ping had put all his effort into the restriction-breaking talisman. Especially after advancing to the transcendence realm, with the help of his cultivation and the accumulation of his divine sense, he was able to successfully craft the 5-colored restriction-breaking talisman. However, these talismans were extremely precious. Not only was the difficulty in crafting them high, but the cost to craft them was also very high. The amount of 5-colored restriction-breaking talismans that Lu Ping had accumulated was not a lot. Previously, when he returned to the Northern Sea, Lu Ping had thought of ways to obtain 2 more 7-colored restriction-breaking talismans from Tian Shui Laozu. However, Tian Shui Laozu had extorted him ruthlessly. The price he had to pay was extremely high. After that, Lu Ping wanted to go to the Talisman Crafting Pavilion to look for Taoist Xianju to exchange for some 5-colored restriction-breaking talismans. Unexpectedly, he was rejected. Taoist Xianju's reasoning was very reasonable. Since Lu Ping was already a master talisman crafting, why not try crafting the 5-colored restriction-breaking talisman himself? If he needed high-grade talisman papers, the Talisman Crafting Pavilion would be able to provide a batch. Of course, Lu Ping still needed to use treasures to exchange for them. Chapter 1122. In fact, Lu Ping had been practicing the 3 pure eyes during this period of time. Therefore, after 3 months of closed-door training, Lu Ping had completely mastered this magical power. When he used this magical power with all his strength, Lu Ping could even vaguely see the direction of the seabed's veins. However, Lu Ping was not a mind master. He could only see some things when he was very close to the veins. If it was Sage Xianwei or Sage Xianxin who had obtained this magical power, perhaps the 2 of them would be able to go further on the path of mind masters and formation masters. It was not easy to make high-level talismans. Therefore, although Lu Ping was willing to exchange more items, Sage Xuanju was unable to provide such a large number of high-level talismans to Lu Ping. Helpless, Lu Ping could only obtain some through other means. However, it was better than nothing. After refining the 3 pure eyes, perhaps because of this, Lu Ping's talisman-making technique seemed to have improved. Although it was not obvious, it was enough to make Lu Ping happy. In fact, when these talismans were about to be used up, the success rate of the 5-colored restriction-breaking talisman had really increased. This also made Lu Ping decide to use the last 10 high-level talismans to try to make the 6-colored restriction-breaking talisman. Crackle! As the last talisman broke in the process of drawing the talisman, Lu Ping was very disheartened. Thinking back to the time when Tian Shui Laozu relied on the imperfect inheritance to push the restriction-breaking talisman all the way to the 5-colored restriction-breaking talisman. What kind of talent was that? Even Sage Xuanju, although his cultivation was far from the Dharma stage, could now maintain a relatively stable success rate in making the 6-colored restriction-breaking talisman. Compared to these two, Lu Ping's talent in talisman making was really somewhat lacking. Looking at the array formation in front of him, Lu Ping's gaze was unfathomably deep. Then, Lu Ping walked at different paces with different rhythms. He didn't cause the slightest ripple in the array formation. Using the 3 pure true pupils, he passed through the 3 outermost layers of the dark sky seas array formation. This made Lu Ping more confident in the 3 pure eyes. In the next few days, although Lu Ping sometimes could not see the flaws in the formation, he could still find the weak points. Relying on Lu Ping's own strength, he broke through 5 formations in a row and advanced more than 10 miles. At this time, Lu Ping finally realized that something was wrong. Perhaps he was a little too careless. Sure enough, after observing the array formation in front of him for about 2 days, Lu Ping finally walked towards what he thought was the most suitable flaw in the array formation. Just as Lu Ping stepped into the flaw, a strange laughter suddenly sounded out. "Ha, you really are a rookie." Lu Ping's heart skipped a beat. He had once heard from Xiang Shiping about the dark space sea. Although the sea seemed unusually quiet after being shrouded by the array formation, there were countless array formation cultivators from all over the cultivation world hiding in the array formation. It was just that because of the array formation's concealment, most people couldn't see them. Therefore, every time Lu Ping prepared to break a formation, he was extremely careful. When he broke the formation just now, Lu Ping had prepared for 2 days. He had already carefully explored everything around him, but he clearly did not notice anyone nearby. However, at this time, Lu Ping had no time to care about other things. Just as he stepped into the flaw in the formation that he was originally worried about was not activated. Instead, several interlocking formations around the formation were suddenly activated. Frost arrows, fireballs, and wind blades suddenly attacked Lu Ping from all directions. Boom, boom, boom. He. Amidst the strange laughter, Lu Ping was immediately engulfed by the attack light that filled the sky. However, a blue light suddenly burst out from the light that filled the sky, immediately collapsing the light that filled the sky. Lu Ping turned around unscathed and looked out of the formation. At this time, a strange man with long hair and a long beard appeared out of nowhere. His face was completely covered, and he was dressed like a beggar. He stared at Lu Ping in the formation with a pair of shocked eyes. The strange laughter from before had been swallowed back into his stomach and could no longer be heard. Breaking the formation with force is the simplest and most direct method. However, human strength is limited. You only blocked one attack from the formation has not been broken. Although the strange man was shocked by Lu Ping's strength, he still said this. As if to confirm the strange man's words, at this moment, the several interlocking formations were activated again, and a variety of spells that were more concentrated than before rained down on Lu Ping. Lu Ping snorted coldly. He stretched out his hand and sucked in the seawater under his feet. Suddenly, the seawater around him turned into small round water droplets. Lu Ping stretched out his hand and pushed. These 129,600 water droplets shot in all directions. Some turned into small swords, some turned into fish, some turned into birds, and some turned into water snakes. Within a radius of several tens of feet around Lu Ping, it suddenly exploded into a cloud of blue smoke. This time, the activation of the interlocking formations was once again blocked by Lu Ping. What a terrifying control of divine will. The strange man outside the formation jumped up and said, "The power of the attacks of the interlocking formations is secondary. The other thing is that they are concentrated and pervasive, making it difficult for one to defend against them. Even mid-Dharma adepts often have to attend to one thing and lose sight of the other. You can actually destroy all these attacks without missing a beat. Your level of divine will is probably no lower than that of a great Dharma adept, right?" Lu Ping's heart skipped a beat. He saw the strange man walking around the periphery excitedly, as if he was thinking about something. At this moment, the interlocking formations were activated again, ready to attack for the third time. "Io!" The strange man slapped his head, as if remembering something. Just as he was about to make a move, he saw 3 talismans suddenly fly out of Lu Ping's hands, flashing with 3-colored light. He stuck the talismans onto the interlocking formations. The movements of the strange man's hands immediately slowed down. He watched as the 3-meter-long talismans exploded into 3 dazzling beams of 3-colored light in midair. The interlocking formations immediately collapsed under the impact of the light beams. "No way! 3-colored restriction-breaking talismans. You're really wasting God's gift. You actually need to use the 3-colored restriction-breaking talismans to break these nameless formations. Do you have a lot of restriction-breaking talismans? If you have the ability, why don't you break all the formations in the entire dark space sea?" The strange man was only a late core forging adept. When he saw that Lu Ping, an early Dharma adept, had broken through the formations in the blink of an eye and returned to his vicinity, he did not show the slightest bit of fear. Instead, he jumped up and down and shouted at Lu Ping. Lu Ping did not know whether to laugh or cry as he looked at the strange man in front of him. Originally, Lu Ping had just fallen into the trap of the interlocking formations and had been suppressing a bellyful of anger. At this moment, this fellow had jumped out to make sarcastic remarks. Lu Ping had even regarded all of this as a setup by this fellow. He did not expect that now that Lu Ping had broken through the formations and could kill him with a single finger, this fellow would not show the slightest bit of fear. Instead, he confidently accused Lu Ping of using restriction-breaking talismans to break through the formations. Lu Ping furrowed his brows and abruptly swept his sleeves. A strong gust of wind immediately forced the strange man to swallow back his words. His face flushed red as he finally realized who he was facing. A trace of regret flashed across his eyes, and he was obviously a little afraid. Lu Ping frowned. Lu Ping waved his sleeves and suddenly, a strong gust of wind swept out. Lu Ping's face was cold as he said, "If you continue to be so noisy, you can just be a mute from now on." The strange man hurriedly shook his head like a rattledrum. However, with his head full of long hair and beard, he looked like a rolling ball of fur. "Tell me, how did you know that it was a trap? How long have you been hiding here? Was it just to frame me?" Lu Ping said calmly with his hands behind his back. The strange man immediately felt the pressure on him lessen. He fiercely took 2 deep breaths and said, "This junior is a formation master who came here to study formations. I have been in the dark space sea for more than 20 years. This is just an ordinary formation trap. Normally, those who have reached the level of a master in the field of formations would be able to see through it. This junior was indeed secretly observing senior's every move. However, I did not try to frame you, I was just curious." "Curious?" The strange man nodded and said, "Curious, just curious." Scratching the tangled hair on his head, the strange man chuckled and said, "This junior has actually been paying attention to senior for the past few days. I originally thought that senior was just a beginner in formations. Because the formations in the periphery are merely scribbles left behind by formation masters who study formations in the dark space sea. However, it took senior such a long time to break through them, Lu Ping couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed. The strange man saw Lu Ping's expression and didn't dare to tease him anymore. He hurriedly continued, "But senior is always able to accurately pinpoint the flaws in the array formations. In just a dozen days, you've passed through more than a dozen array formations. This made me a little confused. It wasn't until senior spent 2 days in front of this array formation that you finally chose the one that looked like a flaw in the array formation that I saw. In the end, I was convinced that senior isn't proficient in array formations at all. Instead, you're relying on a kind of eye technique that can see through the flaws in the array formations. That's how you managed to get here." Lu Ping's expression did not change as he asked, "Oh, what is the explanation for this flaw in the formation?" The strange man suddenly became interested and said, "Speaking of this formation, it is actually just a rather ingenious formation in the periphery of the dark space sex formation. It's not that powerful. This is only the periphery of the dark space sex formation? Lu Ping asked with a hint of surprise in his voice. Isn't it just the periphery? This formation is actually a chain of formations, but for the formation in front of us, Senior's previous foothold was indeed a flaw, but after it was combined with the surrounding formations, this flaw became a trap, a fuse that triggered the chain of formations. That's why Senior was ambushed earlier. The eccentric immediately continued. Actually, I wanted to save Senior earlier, but I didn't expect that Senior's remarkable abilities would be able to force his way out. It's just that, Senior used the restriction breaking talisman to break these small formations. It's really, really reckless. It's a bit of a waste of talent. Chapter 11:23. With Deng Ming's help, Lu Ping broke through several formations and headed towards the incomplete space formation. Deng Ming was the sloppy man with long beard and long hair. At that time, Lu Ping could not stand this guy's sloppiness and odor, so he shook his wrist. Deng Ming did not see how he made a hand seal, but he felt a whirlpool of water suddenly rise from under his feet with an unparalleled force and swallow him whole. Just when Deng Ming thought he was going to die, he suddenly felt the dizziness caused by the strange whirlpool disappear. Deng Ming finally felt something was wrong. When he opened his eyes, he saw Lu Ping still standing in front of him. The only difference was that at this time, Deng Ming's body seemed to have been rubbed 3 times, and he felt waves of comfort. The surging seawater under his feet even brought a cool breeze into the formation. Deng Ming suddenly realized something and reached out to touch his head. Sure enough, there was a flash of light. Not only his hair, but even his eyebrows and beard had disappeared. Deng Ming felt a chill in his heart. He knew that if Lu Ping wanted to kill him just now, it would really be no different from crushing an ant to death. However, his heart immediately relaxed. Since he did not die just now, it at least proved that the person in front of him would not kill him. Thinking back to how he had ridiculed Lu Ping as a rookie when he broke the formation, Deng Ming had already guessed the reason why Lu Ping did not kill him. The incomplete space formation was actually divided into 3 layers. The outermost layer was almost all the doodles of formation masters who had studied the incomplete space formation. It was often used to block some disturbances, but it could also be seen as a test to see if one was qualified to enter the incomplete space C. Of course, if one was a beginner in formation, this outermost simple formation could be an excellent place to practice. When an array cultivator had the qualifications to become a real array master, he would be able to break through the outermost array formation and study the middle array formation. On the other hand, the middle formation was the work of the formation masters who had studied the incomplete space nether formation. The power of the formation here was much more difficult to deal with than the formations at the outermost layer. However, most of the formations here were the results of the formation masters who had studied the incomplete space nether formation. It was a tradition that the formation masters had formed with the original intention of protecting the incomplete formation. At the same time, it was also a stage for the formation masters of later generations to compete with each other. As a result, these formations often expressed the creativity and understanding of the formation master who studied the incomplete formations. The power of the formations might not be great, but they were often ingenious. Although ordinary formation masters had the qualifications to study these formations, if they wanted to thoroughly pass through the middle formations and truly come into contact with incomplete void formations, then their attainments in formations had to reach the level of a formation master. As for the chain formation that Lu Ping had triggered earlier, it was already in the middle of the formation. Oh, in that case, you're already a formation master, and you can come into contact with the inner space nether formation? Lu Ping asked with great interest. Of course. Deng Ming said with a trace of complacency, 20 years ago, I entered the space nether sea. I was just a cultivator who had reached the level of a formation master. However, in just 10 years, I've broken through from the outermost array formation to the true incomplete space nether formation. I'm a genuine formation master. In the next 10 years, I've already completely understood 3 of the space nether formations. Lu Ping glanced at the complacent Deng Ming and snorted coldly. It's only been 10 years since you became a formation master from an ordinary formation master, but you've only understood 3 of the Space Nether formations in the next 10 years. What's there to be proud of? When Deng Ming heard this, he immediately jumped to his feet. He did not even care that the person in front of him could easily turn him into ashes. He said loudly, What do you know? Every formation in the incomplete Space Nether formation is exquisite, and most of them were left behind by the formation masters of the Space Nether sect. The formation masters who stayed in the Space Nether Sea all say that if a formation master can understand 7 of the Space Nether formations, then he's a well-deserved formation master. Lu Ping really didn't know about this, but he did know that Kong Ming Sect's Grand Array formations spanned 1,000 miles, and there were at least 1,000 arrays of various sizes. Yet, an Array Grandmaster was able to reach the level of an Array Formation Grandmaster by just comprehending 7 arrays. Lu Ping found it hard to believe. Don't think that it's easy to comprehend these 7 formations. Deng Ming seemed to understand what Lu Ping was thinking, and he said, There are countless formation masters from various sects hidden in the Space Nether Sea, and there's no lack of disciples from influential clans and sections. They all have a complete formation inheritance and sufficient resources in their sects, but they still come here to study the incomplete Space Nether formation. There are even many cultivators who spend hundreds of years but are not necessarily able to break through 7 formations and become a formation master. I'm just an independent formation cultivator without a sect, but I was able to consecutively break through 3 of the incomplete Space Nether formations in over 10 years. I'm not inferior to the formation masters cultivated by those famous sects. Lu Ping was slightly surprised, and he could not help but feel a trace of respect for the formation master beside him. It was truly not easy for an independent cultivator to reach this step. As they spoke, the 2 of them broke through a formation, and Deng Ming suddenly said, This is the place. This is the boundary between the middle layer of the Space Nether Sea and the inner layer of the incomplete Space Nether formation. Lu Ping looked around and said, How come there doesn't seem to be any difference? The formations here are all connected, so how can you tell the difference between the remnant formations and the formations left behind by those who came later? Deng Ming smiled, and he casually formed a hand seal and struck the formation behind him. A layer of colorful light flashed over the formation, and it immediately calmed down again. In order to pay tribute to the cultivators of the Space Nether sect, when the formation masters left their formations, they limited the light of the formations to 5 colors. Some even did not hesitate to lower the formation's power. However, the true incomplete Space Nether formations are all colorful. As soon as Deng Ming finished speaking, he formed a hand seal and a colorful light immediately flashed from the formation in front of him. Lu Ping nodded and said, So that's how it is. Then, where are the remains of the senior cultivator you spoke of? Deng Ming said, It's from this formation in front of us, and it should be around the 5th formation. Lu Ping turned to look at Deng Ming and said, Didn't you say that you could only break through 3 formations? Deng Ming explained, That's right, when I accidentally broke through the 2nd formation, I could already sense the remains of the senior. Unfortunately, after several years, I could only break through the 3rd formation, and was unable to open the 4th formation. However, now that I have senior's help, opening the 4th formation won't be difficult. Lu Ping looked at him strangely and said, Do you know what's in the remains? Deng Ming said blankly, I don't know. I hope I can obtain the inheritance of the senior's formation. After all, the things that we loose cultivators practice are often not systematic. For the senior to be able to reach there, he must have broken through at least 4 formations, or even more. His cultivation in formation is at least above mine. Lu Ping watched as Deng Ming began to take something out of his storage magic tool, and it seemed that he was going to break through the formation. Lu Ping said, Are there many remains of formation masters here? Deng Ming's speed in setting up the formation slowed slightly, and he slowly said with a somewhat bleak tone, There are indeed. Some formation masters spend their entire lives studying formations here, until they die in meditation. They have long regarded this place as their home. However, most of them are trapped in the formation while studying it, unable to break it, and gradually die of old age. As he spoke, Deng Ming skillfully placed several tools used for setting up the formation in different positions, then activated a formation plate in his hand. Several halos suddenly appeared on the broken formation, and a 5-foot-tall gate suddenly appeared on the broken formation. Senior, let's go. Usually, after these formations are broken by later cultivators, they must be restored to their original state as much as possible. This is the cultivation holy land of formation masters, and everything must be preserved as much as possible so that it can be passed down to future generations. Otherwise, no matter how profound the formation left behind by the Kong-Ming sect is, it won't be enough for us formation masters to break it after thousands of years. Deng Ming was the first to step into the formation through the gate. Lu Ping thought for a moment and then calmly shook his sleeves, and then followed Deng Ming into the first layer of the formation. Watching the gate slowly shrink behind him until it disappeared, Lu Ping looked up. At this moment, he was already in a 7-colored formation space. On the other side, Deng Ming had begun to set up a second formation. Lu Ping's eyes grew deeper and deeper. He wandered around this layer of the array formation space, casually looking for something. Seeing that, Deng Ming said, "Senior, I have more or less checked this space. There shouldn't be any traps here. However, once we break the new formation, you will have to be careful. There might be some formations within formations, or traps within formations. Once we step inside, it will be good if the formation is not strong. If it is the other way around, we might end up like the senior's corpse that I saw, trapped inside." Not long after Lu Ping and Deng Ming stepped into the formation and the gate disappeared, the light from the formation next to them suddenly dissipated. The sound of footsteps rang out and a middle-aged man slowly walked out. Looking at the spot where the gate had appeared, an inquisitive look appeared on his face. He said, "How did this person get here? Could he be a formation master? However, he doesn't look like it. Haha, if I meet him somewhere else, I might have to avoid him and feign civility. However, this is a good opportunity to kill him." Chapter 11:24. Lu Ping naturally didn't know that he was being watched by someone he knew. At this moment, Lu Ping followed behind Deng Ming. They had already broken through the third layer of the formation and arrived in front of the fourth formation. This was where Deng Ming had been stumped all these years. Behind this formation, there was a corpse surrounded by the fifth layer of formation. After Lu Ping used his eye technique, he could vaguely see a storage magic item on the waist of the corpse. This is the fourth formation. For the past 4 or 5 years, I've been trapped in front of this fourth formation. Until now, I've only managed to deduce 4 formation nodes. If I want to break this formation, I'll have to find at least 8 formation nodes before I can try. Even then, I may not succeed. Lu Ping looked around and suddenly said, "The formations here are interconnected. Each formation is surrounded by several formations. Perhaps the fourth formation you're facing is actually a formation that can be considered exquisite even among the spatial nether formations. It's far beyond your understanding. Even a formation master may not be able to break it easily." Deng Ming wanted to grab his hair, but then he remembered that his head was already shining. He simply touched his shiny skull and chuckled, "Perhaps. It's just that I've spent several years on this formation. I really don't want to give it up, but I've forgotten about the others." Actually, you don't have to spend all your time on this formation. You can go and study the other formations. That way, the difficulty will be much lower. Once you've completely understood the 7 formations and obtained the qualifications of a formation grandmaster, wouldn't it be better to come back and study this formation? Even if you still can't completely understand it at that time, you can start from the formations at the side and go around this formation. You'll still be able to obtain the relics left behind by the remains. Deng Ming smiled and said, "Perhaps it's because I've been stuck in a dead end. I've been studying this formation for some time, and it's not that I don't have any clues. It's just that the progress is a little slow. I really can't stop. I always feel that as long as I persist for a while, I can find a key node and break this formation. I've been like this for 4 or 5 years." Lu Ping nodded and said, "Then what do you want me to do?" "I need the help of Senior's eye technique to find a few key formation nodes. This way, I can deduce the operation of this formation based on these nodes and open this formation. All right. Lu Ping performed the 3 pure true pupils, to the extreme. Suddenly, 6 light spots converged on the formation. 4 of them were already found and marked by Deng Ming, and the other 2 were not found by him. When Lu Ping pointed out the 2 nodes, Deng Ming inevitably showed a suspicious look on his face. He said, "That's it?" Lu Ping didn't say anything. Deng Ming still seemed to be worried. He spread a dense fog wall above the formation's shield with his Zhen Yuan, and no one knew what he was calculating. After a while, he said in surprise, "These 2 are really the key points of the formation. How could I not think of it? The 3 pure true pupils is really the most famous eye technique in the world of cultivation. No wonder those formation cultivators from famous sects practice it. It's really good for the study of formations." "You can open it now?" That's not enough. At least I need to find the 8 nodes on the formation where the spiritual energy converges. Only then can I open the formation without damaging the formation's foundation. After that, I can easily restore it. Actually, if you use these 6 nodes to weaken the formation's strength as much as possible, I can easily break this formation. Deng Ming's expression changed. He said, "No. But you should know that this will save you a lot of time. Moreover, you can easily take out the inheritance of the formation master's remains." Deng Ming still stubbornly shook his head and said, "No. This ancestor's relic is the holy land of formations. It can't be destroyed." Lu Ping was exasperated, but there was nothing he could do. After a while, he said, "What if I destroy it now and you repair it in the future?" Deng Ming stopped his calculations and said, "Senior is not a formation cultivator. Perhaps you don't agree with the insistence of formation cultivators like me. In that case, I'll talk about something else. Ever since the Kong Ming faction was destroyed by the combined forces of the overseas sects, the formation here has actually been linked together in a strange way. It's like fallen vines tangling together. Although it's a broken formation, it's actually more difficult to deal with than the intact Kong Ming faction's protective formation." "So what?" "That is to say, if Senior uses a strong method to break the formation, it will definitely cause the entire formation to shake, which will alarm the formation masters currently cultivating in the Kong Ming formation. The furious formation masters will immediately follow the clues and find this place. After that, Senior will face the encirclement of all the formation masters currently cultivating in the formation." Deng Ming paused, then emphasized, "The encirclement of the formation masters. This is a heaven for formation masters. In the past, in order to maintain the integrity of the formation masters here worked together to kill countless cultivators who tried to break the formation by force. Among them, there were many new talents and old masters from the various sections. According to what I know, there were even 2 people who were at the level of a great cultivator. Because they thought that their status was extraordinary and they were skilled, they provoked the anger of the masses and were attacked by the formation masters. In the end, they died with grievances." Lu Ping was dumbfounded when he heard this. Deng Ming, who was beside him, knew that nothing he said would be of any use. Only these words would be effective, and he could not help but shake his head. Lu Ping really did not want to speed up and break the formation by force. At this moment, he even somewhat regretted coming to the Kong Ming Sea at this time. At this time, his cultivation had already reached the limit of the early Dharma stage. If he had not used a secret technique to seal his cultivation, he would probably have immediately attracted the first lightning tribulation. Although Deng Ming did not know why Lu Ping had come to the Kong Ming Sea, he could roughly guess. Therefore, when he saw that Lu Ping was a little upset, he said, "I will now use these 6 nodes to shake the entire formation in different ways. Senior, see if you can find new nodes when the formation is shaken." Lu Ping looked a little hesitant and said, "Shake the formation? It won't arouse the suspicion of others, will it?" Deng Ming smiled and shook his head. "No, it won't. I know what I'm doing. This level of shaking will not break any of the formations in the Kong Ming Legacy formation, and it will not attract the attention of other practitioners." Lu Ping had originally thought that this method of testing would be completed very quickly. However, he did not expect that the different methods that Deng Ming had mentioned not only included using a secret technique to search for the nodes, but at the same time, it also included using different combinations of nodes to test the formation. Furthermore, when different combinations appeared, some of the formation equipment that had been set up would have to be changed. In order to speed up the process, Lu Ping had to help. The entire process took more than a month. With Lu Ping's help, they finally found the other two nodes, and Lu Ping's gain was that his knowledge of formations had been greatly enriched. It seems that our speed is still very fast. Senior's eye sorcery is really powerful. Lu Ping was speechless. He had been waiting for more than a month and had long been impatient. However, on the other hand, Deng Ming had spent 4 years to find the 4 nodes of the formation. Although it was often the most difficult to crack a formation at the beginning, as more nodes were found, more things could be deduced. However, it had only taken him a month to find 4 nodes, which was really very fast. In the end, he said helplessly, "You'd better hurry up. 8 nodes are enough now. Hurry up and open this formation." Deng Ming knew that Lu Ping was anxious, but he was still setting up the equipment to break the formation at a steady pace. He strived to succeed in one go. He was a rogue cultivator, and various kinds of cultivation resources were scarce. He had to rely on himself to collect them. Therefore, the layout of the formation was very detailed, and he strived to not make any mistakes. Even though Lu Ping had helped him a lot of spiritual materials that could be used to make the equipment, Deng Ming still did not dare to be careless. However, the result disappointed Lu Ping. After Deng Ming communicated with the 8 nodes, he still failed. The formation still could not be opened. Seeing the disappointment on Lu Ping's face, Deng Ming smiled and said, "Actually, Senior does not need to be disappointed. I have said before that there is a possibility of opening it by communicating with the 8 nodes. Now that I cannot open it, it only means that the layout of this formation is extremely exquisite. It even far surpasses the other formations in the Lost Formation. We need to find more nodes to open it." Lu Ping said unhappily, "Didn't you study formations here with the aim of breaking the 7 formations and becoming a formation grandmaster? Wouldn't it be better if you went to study other formations? Why did you have to gnaw on this formation? Now that you have used all kinds of methods and combinations, you can only find 8 nodes. How much more time do you need to spend on the rest?" Deng Ming was not the slightest bit affected by Lu Ping's anger. Instead, he threw himself into the study of formations with even greater enthusiasm. It seemed that the exquisiteness of this formation had exceeded his expectations and made him even more excited. After hearing Lu Ping's words, Deng Ming smiled and said, "It won't take much time. Senior, have you forgotten that we can combine the 7th and 8th nodes into many more combinations?" Lu Ping helplessly rolled his eyes. He hadn't gained anything else in the past month, but it seemed that he had become more proficient in using the Tripure True Pupils. He could now display its full power. This time, it didn't take much time. After 7 days, the 2 of them had combined their efforts to find 4 nodes. Then, Deng Ming finally opened a door on the protective barrier of the formation. The 2 of them entered the door, and the door slowly closed. Not long after the 2 of them entered the 4th formation, a door suddenly opened behind the 3rd formation that had been opened by Deng Ming. Mr. Wen entered the door and looked all around. Then, his eyes finally landed on the protective barrier of the 4th formation. Then he sneered and said, "It's just a small trick. It's a pity that a talented formation master would be wasted." Chapter 11:25. It took Deng Ming several years to understand this formation. But now, Mr. Wen was able to break it with ease. If Deng Ming was here, then only a formation master who had broken this formation would be able to do so. Otherwise, even a formation master would have to spend a lot of effort to break it open. But Mr. Wen didn't expect Deng Ming to be able to do so with such ease. Mr. Wen looked at the 4th formation in front of him and took out a formation plate. Then, he started to scatter hundreds of formation tools in all directions. Each tool was placed in a different position. Mr. Wen then pressed 3 top-quality spirit stones into the formation plate. Suddenly, the formation lit up with 18 light spots. These were the 12 nodes that Deng Ming had spent several years to find. Then, Mr. Wen made an incantation gesture and the hundreds of formation tools around him lit up with a misty white light. Then, Mr. Wen made the incantation gesture even faster. Suddenly, the 18 light spots on the formation began to move and rearrange themselves into an irregular shape. Then they became still again. Then, Mr. Wen stopped his movements. He looked at the nodes of the spell formation in front of him, but he still didn't feel at ease. So, he stretched out his hand and patted the formation plate. The 3 top-grade spirit stones were smashed into powder, and a third of the hundreds of spell formation tools scattered in the surroundings were also blown up. At this moment, the 18 nodes on the protective shield of the array flickered again. Then, an even more amazing phenomenon occurred. Outside the 18 irregular light spots, a dim light spot gradually began to flicker, and then became brighter and brighter until it was the same size as the other 18 light spots. This wasn't the end of it. Then, a second light spot began to twinkle on the barrier. Then, a third light spot appeared on the barrier. Mr. Wen heaved a sigh of relief. He then said to himself, "It won't be easy to get out of here." If Deng Ming were here, then he would have been shocked by Mr. Wen's methods. Not only did Mr. Wen not weaken the formation, but he also strengthened it. According to Mr. Wen's understanding, even a great formation master wouldn't be able to do this, let alone in such a short period of time. It must be known that the protective formation of the Kongming sect was a very large system. The formations were interconnected with each other, forming a very intricate whole. In the past, the overseas sects had joined forces to break this intricate formation. Many Dharma adepts had joined forces and expended a lot of energy. But they had only been able to break it. The Kongming sect's formation had stood strong for thousands of years. This was partly due to the meticulous maintenance of the formation by the previous generations of formation masters. But the most important factor was the stability of the formation. It could be said that a slight change in one part could affect the entire formation. Under these circumstances, the only ones who could change the Kongming sect's protective formation were the formation masters of the Kongming sect. There were only a limited number of them who could become experts. If one could force them to be divided into 2 levels, then it would depend on whether they could weaken or strengthen the sect's formation. Weakening was easy, but strengthening was extremely difficult. The protective formation of the Kongming sect was meticulously laid out by the formation masters of the Kongming sect. Only they were able to continuously improve the formation as they continued to study the formation. Mr. Wen was able to do the same. This meant that Mr. Wen's attainments in formations were at least at the level of the formation masters of the Kongming sect. In the entire world of practitioners, Mr. Wen stood at the pinnacle of the formation masters. Mr. Wen didn't stay here for long. Instead, he blocked Lu Ping and the others' escape route. Then, he turned to the side and opened the 3rd array formation. The 4th array formation was right next to the other array formation's periphery. What's wrong? Lu Ping asked casually as he looked at Deng Ming, who was looking behind him with a puzzled expression. It's nothing. Maybe it's because I've spent 4 to 5 years trying to break this array formation, but now, I've broken it in less than 2 months. It feels unreal. It's as if this array formation isn't the one I broke earlier at all. Lu Ping chuckled and said, "That's normal. After all, you and I worked together to break through the array formation. You didn't have much time to accumulate. After we achieve our goal, you can always return to your studies. I'm sure you'll make great progress in the art of array formations." Deng Ming turned his attention back to the 5th formation and said, "Improvement is inevitable. This time, with seniors' help, juniors' improvement on the path of formations will definitely be shortened by several years. Not to mention, there's still the corpse in front of us. Even if he's not a formation grandmaster, he's at least at the pinnacle of the standard grandmaster level for being able to make it here." Through the formation shield, the corpse inside could be seen more clearly. Lu Ping smiled and didn't answer. At this time, his attention was not on Deng Ming's investigation of the formation. Instead, he was walking casually in the small space covered by the 4th formation, as if he was taking a walk. At the same time, he seemed to be surprised by everything in this space and looked around. With Lu Ping's support for spiritual materials, Deng Ming could finally relax a little and make some adequate preparations. However, these spiritual materials could only be used as formation tools. Some were simple tools or substitutes made by Deng Ming's snacks. This made Lu Ping sigh. No wonder the cultivation world said that individual cultivators were the real all-rounders. Because they didn't have the support of sex and forces, every step forward on the road of cultivation was extremely difficult. In order to make full use of the limited resources in their hands, they had to understand all kinds of aspects: cultivating and identifying spiritual herbs, alchemy, refining weapons, making talismans, searching for ores, and so on. However, it was also because of this that they had to spend more energy to learn and experiment these things, which greatly shortened their cultivation time. In the end, the strength of individual cultivators was weaker than that of cultivators of the same level. Seeing that Lu Ping was so leisurely, Deng Ming didn't dare to say anything at first. However, after a long time, seeing that Lu Ping was still so undisciplined, he finally couldn't hold it anymore and said, "Senior, can you help me?" Lu Ping said, "Oh," and asked curiously, "Can we start to break the formation now?" Deng Ming was speechless for a while. After a while, he said, "Senior, you should use the Sanqing True Pupils to check if you can find one or two nodes, right? Or perhaps you can look around and see if there are any other flaws." As long as he didn't break the formation by force, other methods didn't matter. Only by breaking the formation could Deng Ming have the opportunity to analyze and learn the formation. Everything else was just empty talk. Yes. Lu Ping was suddenly enlightened. He hurried to the fifth formation and was about to check it carefully. However, he seemed to think of something and turned to Deng Ming and said, "Actually, I have a restriction-breaking talisman here. If you are in a hurry to get the remains in the fifth formation, I can help you." Deng Ming was stunned for a moment before he shook his head and said, "The formation-breaking talisman can break a formation, but it's different from the traditional method of breaking a formation. Using it to break a formation will either completely destroy the formation or completely repair it. It's impossible to calculate the foundation, nodes, and spiritual energy of the formation because there won't be any traces left behind. Therefore, it's useless to study formations." Speaking of this, Deng Ming seemed to think of something and continued, "What's more, using a restriction-breaking talisman to break the formation is too extravagant." Lu Ping didn't want to study the formation. He wanted to find what he wanted as soon as possible and then leave this place to pass the first thunder tribulation. Moreover, at this time, he thought of the weak situation of the formation when he used the formation-breaking talisman in the Yingtian Taoism field. Therefore, he thought for a while and asked, "How many colors of restriction-breaking talisman do you think are needed to break this formation?" 5 colors. Deng Ming was a little uncertain. He had only heard about the power of the formation-breaking talisman and saw a few words in the incomplete inheritance. With his status, how could he see such a high-level talisman? Otherwise, he wouldn't have been so excited when he saw Lu Ping use the 3-color restriction-breaking talisman for the first time. However, he was a formation master after all. Even if he hadn't seen the restriction-breaking talisman before, he could still estimate its power. Then he gave Lu Ping a positive answer and said, "Well, it shouldn't be a problem to use the 5-color restriction-breaking talisman to break a space door. If we use the 7-color restriction-breaking talisman directly, we should be able to completely destroy this formation. However, in that case, we don't need to live anymore. Even if we don't die from the chain effect of the broken formation, we will be surrounded and beaten to death by the formation masters who rush here after hearing the news. What if we use the 3-color restriction-breaking talisman to weaken the formation first? In this way, we may be able to find the flaw of this formation together. Then we can slowly open the door of the formation. In this way, not only can we shorten the time to break the formation, but it won't affect your study of formation." Deng Ming was stunned. After thinking for a while, it seemed that Lu Ping's method was indeed feasible, but this is indeed a method, but it will be a waste of the formation-breaking talisman. It is too extravagant. Extravagant? Lu Ping used his spiritual sense to scan the 3 stacks of different colored talismans in his storage device. Among them, the most stacks were the 3-color restriction breaking talisman. There were a total of 17 of them. The second stack was the 4-color restriction breaking talisman, and the last stack was the 5-color restriction breaking talisman. However, there were a total of 8 of them. This was also because Lu Ping's success rate in crafting the 5-color restriction breaking talisman had greatly increased. Other than that, Lu Ping still had 2 7-color restriction breaking talismans that he had obtained from Tian Shuelaozu. However, these 2 were much more important. Lu Ping had placed them in a meticulously sealed spirit sealing box. Chapter 1126. Lu Ping tried his best to use the 3 pure eyes, but he could only see a dim light spot on the protective wall of the formation. Obviously, it was an unimportant node. Lu Ping threw a 3-colored restriction breaking talisman on it. The 3-colored light swept over the protective wall of the formation, and the whole protective wall suddenly burst into a layer of light, which seemed to be fighting against the 3-colored light, or being sucked out of the protective wall by the light of the talisman. Lu Ping's eyes were like cyan abysses, but he only saw a dim node on the protective wall of the formation, in addition to the previous light spot node. The second one was found, but there were only 2. Senior, the power of the formation is obviously beyond my estimation. Deng Ming touched his bald head, and seemed to be very ashamed of what he had calculated. Then he saw Lu Ping directly stick a 4-colored restriction breaking talisman on the protective wall of the formation without saying anything. 4-colored. Before Deng Ming's exclamation faded away, Lu Ping had already seen the other 4 nodes on the protective array formation. Among them, only 2 nodes were much brighter than before. Including the 2 nodes he found earlier, the other 4 nodes were abnormally dim and gloomy. While the effect of the 4-colored restriction breaking talisman was still there, Deng Ming quickly set up a few formation tools, which echoed with the 6 nodes on the protective wall of the formation. Then he began to work on the entire protective wall of the formation. Lu Ping's 3 pure eyes, which had been completely refined, burst out 2 cyan lights at this time. Then he stuck 3 marks on the protective wall of the formation before the effect of the 4-colored restriction breaking talisman disappeared. How is it? Deng Ming nodded excitedly and said, "Great. I only used a 3-colored and a 4-colored restriction breaking talisman. This is too wasteful. I'm really ashamed." Hee, as long as it can shorten the time to break the formation. Deng Ming nodded and said, "I see. But these 9 nodes need to be tested for a long time again. These nodes are divided into 2 kinds, bright and obscure. Only 3 of the 9 nodes are bright, and the other 6 are obviously dim. I don't know what's going on." It took Deng Ming more than a month's time. After repeatedly refusing Lu Ping's array-breaking charms, Deng Ming finally found 6 more nodes in the array formation with the help of Lu Ping's 3 pure true pupils. Then, the array formation's entrance was cut out from the wall. When the 2 of them reached the 5th formation, Deng Ming was no longer anxious about the remains that were right in front of him. He turned around to look at the formation behind him and said, I understand. I said that the 4th and 5th formation are much harder to break than the outer formation of the legendary Nether Void formation. The formation has already been modified, and it's similar to strengthening it. This is already close to the strength of the 6th formation. At this time, Lu Ping more or less understood the situation of the Hidden Void formation. He knew what it meant to be able to strengthen any of the formations in the Hidden Void formation. He said in surprise, "Doesn't this mean that only the top formation masters in the world of cultivation can do this?" "Yes, that's right." Deng Ming turned to look at the corpse behind him and said, "If that's the case, it's very likely that these 2 strengthened formations came from the person in front of me when he was still alive. In other words, I might have obtained an extremely impressive legacy." By then, the opened door of the formation had slowly closed up. Lu Ping smiled at Deng Ming and said, "Congratulations, then. This time, you've broken the 4th and 5th formation consecutively, which are equivalent to the 6th and 7th formation inside the Hidden Void formation. As long as you take the time to study them, you will definitely be able to understand the essence of these two formations. When that time comes, the world of cultivation will probably have another formation master." Deng Ming smiled and said, "This is all thanks to Senior's help. Otherwise, I wouldn't have such great hope." As Deng Ming said that, he began to tidy up the corpse before him. On the side, Lu Ping said meaningfully, "Yes, without the support of a force, whether it's an alchemist, a refiner, or a formation master, in the world of cultivation, almost all of them are in a difficult situation." Deng Ming placed a piece of animal skin and a palm-sized abacus in front of him. Then, he took the storage artifact from his waist and began to check it in his hand. At the same time, he smiled and said, "Senior, are you interested in me?" Lu Ping quickly shook his head and said, "I'm not interested in you. It's the sect that I'm in that is interested in you." Deng Ming's face lit up. He took out 3 jade slips from his storage artifact and carefully checked them one by one. It seemed that the formation inheritance left by the corpse should be in these 3 jade slips. Seeing him like this, Lu Ping stopped talking. After a while, Deng Ming finally reacted. He smiled at Lu Ping apologetically and immediately asked, "Senior, can you make the decision? Why would they accept a formation master of unknown origin like me?" Lu Ping did not answer Deng Ming's question directly. Instead, he said, "How about a treasure ship?" "What?" Deng Ming was stunned. Then, a trace of yearning and doubt appeared on his face. He said, "A treasure ship?" Deng Ming did not think that Lu Ping had the right to casually accept a rogue cultivator and an unknown formation master in the sect. Just like the process of accepting foreign cultivators by ordinary sects, the test of passing the recognition might take decades or even hundreds of years. How could Deng Ming wait for such a long time? However, Lu Ping immediately used a treasure ship to destroy Deng Ming's conjecture. What was a treasure ship? It was a secret among secrets of a sect. It was a mobile base of an overseas sect. It was on par with the first secret place of inheritance of a sect, a great sect protector, a main spiritual vein, and so on. It could be called the foundation of a sect. Yet, it was so easily revealed to Deng Ming. The right to speak? If Lu Ping was worried about this, would he reveal the treasure ship to Deng Ming? This was a powerful counterattack to the right to speak. Lu Ping did not care about the right to speak in the sect at all. He had the qualifications that the sect was willing to break the rules for. However, at this time, the first thing that came to Deng Ming's mind was naturally a formation master's yearning for a treasure ship. For a formation master, there were only 3 recognized achievements in their life. First, breaking the entire mysterious void formation, which no one could achieve. Second, presiding over the establishment of a sect-protecting formation for a sect. Third, participating in the construction of a treasure ship, which was known as the pinnacle of all cultivation arts, and taking charge of one of the important tasks. Participating in the construction of the treasure ship, Deng Ming naturally knew that he could not take charge of one task. After all, how could there not be a formation master among the sects that could build their own treasure ship? Even so, being able to participate in the construction of a treasure ship was an indescribable temptation for a formation master. But then, he was overwhelmed by the second thought of fear. For the first thought of a beautiful future, the secret of the treasure ship was revealed to him without hesitation. Deng Ming looked at Lu Ping, who was walking around again. At the same time, he looked at the surrounding formation walls from time to time. However, at this time, Deng Ming could already see that Lu Ping seemed to be looking for something, and what he was looking for was probably related to the purpose of breaking into the mysterious void formation, as he was not a formation master at all. Deng Ming's twinkling eyes naturally fell on Lu Ping, but it was not good for him to explain anything now. No matter what, Deng Ming's talent and achievements in formations were enough to make Lu Ping admire him. "You know, I could have invited you on another occasion." Deng Ming naturally understood what Lu Ping meant. This was the mysterious void formation, a heaven for formations, his home ground. If the two of them really fell out after Deng Ming rejected him, there was no other place in the mysterious void formation that could give Deng Ming the confidence to go against a Dharma adept. Moreover, the two of them had only met by chance. If one were to say that Deng Ming had not secretly taken precautions against Lu Ping, even Deng Ming himself would not believe it. Deng Ming finally answered seriously, "I need to think about it." "All right." Lu Ping answered without hesitation, and then asked, "What did you gain from the remains?" Deng Ming excitedly waved the abacus, the animal skin, and the 3 jade scrolls in his hands, saying, "This senior was indeed a grandmaster in matrices." These 3 jade scrolls contain the legacy of matrices he left behind. This abacus is an auxiliary treasure used by matrices practitioners. It's already a spirit cultivation level treasure. If I had this treasure in hand, the time I spent calculating the nodes of the matrices would definitely be greatly reduced. And this animal skin is a diagram drawn by this senior after he entered the mysterious void formation. From the looks of it, this senior has already deciphered 9 matrices from the outside in. My goodness, this is a top-notch grandmaster in matrices, and he has comprehended a total of 29 matrices in the mysterious void formation? The number 29 at the end caused Deng Ming's tone to rise abruptly, and his face was filled with disbelief. He had studied in the mysterious void sea for more than 20 years, and he had only deciphered 3 complete matrices. If not for Lu Ping's help, he would not have been able to decipher the 4th and 5th matrices. Even so, if he wanted to completely comprehend these 2 matrices, he would have needed at least 2 to 3 years. But this person had already comprehended 29 matrices. What a difference! At this moment, Lu Ping suddenly exclaimed and asked, "Why is the color of the 5th matrice's protective cover changing?" What? Deng Ming quivered and broke free from the joy of obtaining the matrices. When he turned to look, he saw that the 5th matrice's protective cover, which had been deciphered earlier, was turning red. Deng Ming's expression changed drastically, and he shouted, "Oh no, someone is ambushing us outside. This person's ability in matrices is far above mine." Before he had finished speaking, a huge spot of light suddenly condensed on the protective cover of the matrices, and then a green flame shot out from the spot of light, pouncing towards Deng Ming's body. Under the cover of the flame, 3 invisible hands made of yuan qi grabbed at the treasures in Deng Ming's hands. Chapter 11:27. What a thief! Lu Ping thought that someone was coveting Deng Ming's inheritance. A golden rock flew behind him, and an auspicious cloud blocked the oncoming fire. However, the 3 primordial qi hands were still reaching for the item in Deng Ming's hand. Lu Ping's flying sword shot out, but he suddenly noticed that the protective wall of the formation suddenly lit up with 3 flashes of light that were even brighter than the previous one. A cold mist with several golden needles shot toward Lu Ping, and its power was many times stronger than the attack that had been aimed at Deng Ming. A wall of sword light suddenly appeared in front of Lu Ping, blocking the 2 attacks. At the same time, the flying sword that was slashing toward the primordial qi hands became much weaker. Only 2 of the 3 primordial qi hands were cut off, and the remaining 1 forcibly took the spirit-nurturing magic treasure from Deng Ming's hand. Get ready to open the 5th formation. I want to see who is out there plotting against us. Lu Ping's 10,000 swords shot out at the same time, and 129,600 sword lights instantly suppressed all the spells that had been activated by the 5th formation. He shouted at Deng Ming. The cloud sails materialized and surrounded Deng Ming's body, just in case. Deng Ming also put away the 2 remaining items in his hand, and then quickly approached the protective wall of the formation. At this time, he did not care about the formation tools in his hand, and he threw them around as if they were worthless, preparing to open the protective wall of the formation. The spells activated by the 5th formation became more and more powerful. Although Lu Ping's expression was ugly, he did not panic at all. The 2 flying swords dashed left and right, turning into countless golden lights, and actually suppressed the spells released by the formation to a distance of only 10 feet away from the formation. In other words, every time the formation released a spell, it would often be broken by a sword light before it could fly more than 10 feet away. Lu Ping was far from the legend that Jiao Daoren had left in the cultivation world, but the spells that Lu Ping was suppressing could not be compared to the 10,000 spells that Jiao Daoren had mentioned. No! Not far away, Deng Ming's anxious voice came, the formation can't be opened anymore. The nodes on it have obviously been changed. In such a short time, the person who can do this must be a formation grandmaster, and an extremely brilliant one at that. I am far from being a match for him. With the help of the 5-colored restriction breaking talisman, how long will it take to open it? I can't open it. As long as the cultivator behind this formation is still presiding over it, I can't open it. Lu Ping knew that he had asked a stupid question, so he hurriedly said, "What about the 6th formation? Didn't the corpse leave behind an inheritance, saying that it had opened up to the 9th formation when it was alive?" There was a hint of despair in Deng Ming's hoarse voice as he said, "No, even if I know the method to break it, it will be impossible to open it without several days of preparation. Moreover, the tools needed to break the 6th formation are even more precious. Where can I find them in such a hurry?" "Damn it!" Lu Ping roared and said, "What if I use the restriction-breaking talisman?" The two of them were under the protection of the 5th formation, but they were also in front of the 6th formation. Moreover, there were several other formations around them that formed a semicircle. Just as Lu Ping asked this question, the other formations that were adjacent to the 5th formation that Lu Ping had broken earlier were also activated at the same time. Countless frost, flames, golden swords, and silver sabers flew towards the two of them, as if there was no end to them. Lu Ping knew that although the current attacks were strong and dense, they were not so powerful that he could not handle them. However, the problem was that formations relied on the power of heaven and earth. Although Lu Ping was confident that his true essence was abundant, there would be a time when it would be used up. If he could not find a way out by then, the only option left for him was to die. At least the 7-colored talisman is possible. Deng Ming's answer once again made Lu Ping go crazy. He said, "It's possible, how can it be?" Deng Ming shouted, "These formations are interconnected, and the closer we are to the inner layer, the more it is like this. The 6th layer formation can be regarded as the inner core of the nether void array. If you want to break any of the formations in the 6th layer, you will have to face the support of more than one formation." As Deng Ming spoke, he also tried his best to resist the attacks around him. Although he had the help of the cloud sail, and these formations were obviously focused on Lu Ping after they were activated, Deng Ming was only a late core forging cultivator. The fact that he could persist for so long had obviously attracted the attention of the people controlling the formations. While he was speaking, several attacks suddenly came from 3 different directions and attacked him at the same time. Lu Ping cried out in alarm, "Be careful!" A black light was thrown out by Lu Ping, and a black light shroud hung down from the top of Deng Ming's head, enveloping him in the black light. The spells that attacked him from different directions scattered the magic clouds around him, but were finally blocked by the black light shroud. However, Deng Ming still cried out in pain, and it was obvious that he was seriously injured. Lu Ping stared at the dozens of spells attacking him and took big steps forward, shielding Deng Ming behind him. He asked, "How are you?" Deng Ming, who was surrounded by the water-controlling flag, took 2 deep breaths and said, "I won't die yet. The array master outside can monitor us through the formation, so he wanted to kill me. I want to go out and kill him." Ever since Lu Ping had become a Dharma adept, he had never been schemed against like this. The array master hiding outside obviously wanted to use the formation to torture Lu Ping to death. "Senior, don't be rash. Let's not talk about whether or not we can open the 5th formation. Even if we do, who knows how many array masters are waiting outside to ambush us. Furthermore, you may not be a match for them." Upon hearing this, Deng Ming hurriedly tried to dissuade him. Lu Ping did not even turn his head as he asked, "Do you think that the array master outside is a late Dharma adept?" Deng Ming was stunned and said, "Senior, you must be joking. If he really is a great adept, why would he waste time to ambush us with a formation?" Lu Ping suddenly pushed out with both hands, and 2 swords whizzed out from Lu Ping's body. However, Deng Ming only saw one of the blood-red flying swords fly out. After it merged with the previous pair of flying swords, the 3 flying swords danced in the air, forming a thick wall of swords around Lu Ping's body. Deng Ming's expression changed behind Lu Ping. He clearly thought that Lu Ping had to resort to a weaker defense because of the severe loss of his inner yuan. He thought to himself, even Senior is at his wit's end. It looks like we're going to die here. But what's going on the other side? There's clearly no defense there, so why are the various spells still unable to get close to him? At this time, Lu Ping suddenly clenched his hands, and tens of techniques formed in Lu Ping's hands in an instant. Then, Lu Ping suddenly pushed out with both hands, and the tips of the 3 flying swords suddenly pointed outwards. At the same time, on the other side, a blue flying sword finally revealed itself in the void. As Lu Ping suddenly pushed outwards, Deng Ming was instantly shocked by a sound that sounded like a tsunami. The 4 flying swords pushed outwards in unison, and in Deng Ming's eyes, they suddenly turned into a monstrous torrent that wanted to split apart all obstacles in front of it and advance forward. The various spells that had been cast by the 4 activated 5th layers of the formation that were adjacent to the 6th layer of the formation behind him were actually swallowed up by the torrent of swords that exploded out from the 4 flying swords in an instant. Then, they crashed into the protective walls of the 4 formations. In an instant, the attack that Lu Ping had unleashed with his own strength had actually overwhelmed the 4 activated formations. The Kongming faction's formation. Just as Deng Ming was dumbfounded, Lu Ping had already flown up, and a rainbow light shone brightly in his hands. Then, it swept towards the formation in front of him. The 5th formation in front of him began to rapidly melt in the light, and it was a melting that could not be recovered. Rainbow Restriction Breaking Talisman. In an instant, Deng Ming woke up from his previous shock, and he unconsciously shouted. But then, he immediately thought of something and said, "The formation will be destroyed. Destroy the formation, or destroy my life." Lu Ping jumped out of the hole in the 5th formation, and the thin water-flowing sword first exploded at the hole, to prevent anyone from taking advantage of the situation to ambush him. Then, Lu Ping flashed out of the hole, and his divine sense instantly swept through the entire space between the 4th and 5th formation. Deng Ming was stunned by Lu Ping's question, and then, as if he had thought of something, he no longer cared about his injuries, and took out the animal skin map from his storage magic tool. Then, he carefully dealt with the formation environment in front of him, and then fixed his eyes on the 6th formation. A cry of surprise came from outside the 5th formation behind Deng Ming, accompanied by several roars from the thin water-flowing sword. Obviously, the ambushers did not expect that Lu Ping would have such a heaven-defying talisman like the Rainbow Restriction Breaking Talisman, and even more did not expect that Lu Ping would use this priceless talisman without hesitation to return so quickly. Subconsciously, they used several attacks, but all of them were easily blocked by Lu Ping. When you want its use, a door suddenly opened in the 4th formation, and a black shadow flashed through the door, and then the door closed and disappeared. However, Lu Ping still recognized the man at a glance. It was Mr. Wen Yuan, who was beside Yuan Feifei, and who had entered the 5 Elements tortoise chamber with Lu Ping. At the moment when the door closed, Lu Ping also jumped over. While he was still in the air, he had already scattered 3 talismans in his hand. 3 colorful lights flashed, and swept at the 4th formation in front of him. On the 4th formation, 21 nodes suddenly lit up, but after the 5 colored lights swept through, 15 nodes were destroyed, and the 5th formation was still intact. Of course, Lu Ping did not know that the 4th formation had been specially strengthened by Mr. Wen, and its strength was not weaker than the 5th formation that was hastily changed. However, Lu Ping did not want to let Wen Yuan go just like that. After Wen Yuan opened the door of the 4th formation, he immediately activated the 4th formation in the vicinity. Almost 100 spells were concentrated on Lu Ping in an instant. At this moment, Lu Ping no longer had a way out. He seemed to have fallen into an even more desperate situation than before. Chapter 11:28. However, Lu Ping was not a man who would accept his fate. With a loud shout, the blood-orange sword took the lead and created a whirlpool of sword light. The thin water-flowing sword followed closely and joined in the supreme swordsmanship of all rivers run into the sea. This time, the whirlpool of sword light was not a real whirlpool. Instead, it suddenly protruded and formed a spiral. Endless sword light crashed into the protective shield of the tactical deployment. The squeaking sound was compressed in a short time. It felt like it could even cut through people's divine thoughts. However, the protective shield was finally broken by a small gap. However, this was enough. Countless sword lights spun and swarmed toward the gap at a speed that even divine thoughts could not capture. In the blink of an eye, the gap was forcibly opened up into a big hole of half a foot wide. Hundreds of magic lights swept over. The auspicious clouds hanging the cloud sails were scattered, the black light shield of the water-controlling flag was broken, and the blooming white jade lotus light shadow was smashed. It seemed that the protective great magic, water curtain heaven, was also on the verge of collapse. A crisp sound came, and the blood-orange sword was broken. Lu Ping's heart skipped a beat, but he did not dare to be careless. The thin water-flowing sword followed up. The tactical deployment finally collapsed under Lu Ping's strong attack. A 5-foot hole was formed in an instant, and a sword light suddenly bloomed out of the hole like a flower. Lu Ping stepped into the 4th tactical deployment. He saw Mr. Wen Yuanwen, who was trying to escape in panic and disbelief. How could it be? How could it be? How is this possible? How is this possible? How can the formation that I set up be so easily broken by him? How can he have so many high-grade restriction-breaking talismans? A 7-colored restriction-breaking talisman. How is this possible? This person was actually hiding his strength. Just how deep is his strength? This person is young Master Feixiang's true rival. Mr. Wen, I trust you've been well since we last met? You've given me a life-or-death gift as soon as we've met. I've enjoyed it very much. Now that you've given me a gift in return, do you have anything else to say? Behind Lu Ping, 12 multicolored lights suddenly shone, forming a 10 feet wide ring behind him. I didn't expect that the old man wouldn't be able to kill you even with such a scheme. However, it may not be possible for you to capture the old man in the Nether Void Array. Mr. Wen took a step back as he spoke. Then he fused with the protective wall of the 3rd formation. Lu Ping sneered, and the 5-colored light behind him suddenly shot out. A rank 9 white jade lotus suddenly bloomed under his feet. The petals of the lotus were densely packed with runes, and the base of the lotus suddenly extended under Lu Ping's feet along with the 5-colored light. It easily destroyed the 3rd formation in front of him. When Mr. Wen reappeared, he was already behind the 3rd array formation. Previously, he thought he could rely on the array formations to restrain Lu Ping and kill him. But now, the tables had turned. Mr. Wen believed that as long as he focused on escaping, the array formations would still be able to do so. But just as he was about to move, the formation behind him shattered with a loud bang. Mr. Wen didn't even think about it, and the light beneath his feet began to move. However, he was horrified to find that no matter how hard he tried to move, he couldn't move at all. Lu Ping's faint voice was heard from behind him. Do you still think that you can escape, Mr. Wen? Mr. Wen didn't know when he had fallen into a formation space. 12 5-colored lights were twinkling in the air. Mr. Wen took a deep breath. Lu Ping sensed that Mr. Wen's divine sense had swept through the entire space. He couldn't help but smile. Then he heard Mr. Wen's voice. What an exquisite formation. Is this another one of your hidden cards? Mr. Wen straightened his robes and slowly turned around. He looked at Lu Ping and suddenly smiled. It seems like among the 3rd-generation cultivators, Mr. Wen is still the one who hides the most. Although Mr. Wen has performed very well, to the point that the entire cultivation world has begun to pay attention to you, a rising star from the North Sea, everyone was still fooled by you. You are even more outstanding than they thought. Lu Ping smiled. Lu Ping's expression was tranquil. He listened to Mr. Wen's words and smiled. I am indebted to Mr. Wen's praise. This junior doesn't dare to accept it. But there is one thing that I don't understand. Did Senior attack today because of Brother Yuan's order? Mr. Wen smiled and said, if the old man said that it was because he coveted the remains of the formation master, would you believe him? Lu Ping nodded and said, from the arrangement of the 4th layer's array formation, it's clear that Senior was well prepared. You're clearly here for me. However, Senior seemed to have rushed the fifth layer. Perhaps it's because of the array formation remains. But that was just a spur-of-the-moment decision. Senior is still here for me. Mr. Wen nodded and said, "What you said isn't completely correct. But it's not far off. Although it was a spur-of-the-moment idea to snatch the remains, killing you was also a spur-of-the-moment idea." Lu Ping curiously looked at Mr. Wen and asked, "Was it just a spur-of-the-moment idea?" Mr. Wen smiled and shook his head. "I've always wanted to kill you. And it's not just this old man. Even the elites of the third generation like you wouldn't be able to hold back if you were careless enough to enter a dangerous place." This old man also has the same thought. Mr. Wen shook his head and said, "I've always wanted to kill you." Lu Ping snorted and said, "That's true. This dark void formation is indeed a dangerous place for this junior. But it's the best location for Senior. Let alone Senior, I'm afraid that I wouldn't be able to restrain myself from attacking you. Senior's intention is to share the burden." Mr. Wen smiled bitterly when he saw that Lu Ping was talking about Yuan Feixiang. But he didn't bother to refute. In any case, Lu Ping wouldn't believe him anyway. Moreover, Mr. Wen really had the same idea. Lu Ping had used the natal gentian formation to trap Mr. Wen outside the third layer. But he hadn't noticed that two of the formations had been forcibly broken by Lu Ping's forbidden talismans. Gradually, the surrounding formations began to change color. "Senior, how are you? Let's go." The destruction of the array formation has already alerted the array formation masters who are cultivating in the array formation. They are already rushing over here. The color of the array formation on the periphery has already changed. This means that they are already trying to influence us through the connected array formation system. Now, the outermost area must have already been sealed. Mr. Wen couldn't hear Deng Ming's shout inside the natal gentian formation. But Lu Ping could hear it very clearly. He understood that Mr. Wen was stalling for time. A great formation master had almost consigned Lu Ping to eternal damnation. Lu Ping didn't have many forbidden talismans to waste if more masters like Mr. Wen were to come. Suddenly, a multicolored light fell from the sky above the formation and attacked Mr. Wen from behind. Mr. Wen had secretly broken free from the formation. He was a mid-Dharma adept. After all, he had gone through the 5 elements hidden tortoise. His cultivation had been further consolidated, and his strength was not low. Although the natal gentian formation was far more exquisite than he had expected, it was still praiseworthy for him to be able to break free from the shackles of the formation. It was impossible for him to evade Lu Ping's attack. Mr. Wen dodged the attack from the back in an extremely disheveled manner. It was only then that he realized that there was a strange power in the formation space that was constantly affecting his movements. Otherwise, how could a mid-Dharma adept like him be so disheveled when he was struck by the multicolored radiance? A formation diagram. That's right. A formation diagram is required for a formation master who isn't a formation master to display its full power in the hands of an ordinary Dharma adept. Mr. Wen was worthy of being one of the top formation masters in the world of practitioners. He quickly figured out the problem. He recalled the white jade lotus under Lu Ping's feet. He couldn't help but exclaim, "White jade lotus. It's a 9th rank white jade lotus. What a good formation diagram." "Your Excellency is very lucky." Lu Ping ignored him and 2 more 5-colored lights fell from the sky. This time, Mr. Wen finally saw a fist-sized round bead in the middle of the lights. The 3 origin Shin beads attacked Mr. Wen from the front and back. His surroundings were shrouded in a hazy white light. Mr. Wen suddenly felt like he couldn't move an inch no matter which direction he chose. It was as if he had sunk into the water and had to swim against the current. However, Mr. Wen wasn't one to wait for death. An umbrella suddenly appeared in his hand and he opened it. With the umbrella handle as the center, 8 ribs of the umbrella opened up and an array formation was formed. Then, the array formation forcibly embedded itself into Lu Ping's natal origin time array. The 3 elemental time beads that were attacking from the front and back were suddenly pulled by a strange force that suddenly appeared. They whizzed past the 2 sides of the opened umbrella, not hitting Mr. Chinese. What a brilliant formation diagram! It was able to forcibly break Mr. Wen's control over the Gentian formation. The formation diagram on the umbrella had been integrated into the Gentian formation and had evaded the attack of the Gentian pearls. The formation diagram was exquisite, but the Gentian formation was Lu Ping's formation diagram. Moreover, the formation diagram was one of the best in the world of practitioners. Mr. Wen was able to insert himself into the formation diagram, but Lu Ping's all-out counterattack was only able to drive the umbrella out of the formation diagram in a flash. Lu Ping pointed at the white jade lotus under his feet, and a white light emerged from the formation diagram. Mr. Wen couldn't interfere with the operation of the Gentian formation anymore. So, he could only use his life treasure to block the attack of the Gentian pearls. Ding, ding, ding. Mr. Wen was finally able to block the attacks of the 3 primary time beads. But he didn't know when 3 more primary time beads had fallen from the air of the formation space. This made the number of primary time beads besieging Mr. Wen to reach 6. You really think highly of the old man. But, do you think that you can still get out of the nether void formation? Sooner or later, you'll have to accompany the old man. Lu Ping looked around the formation diagram after he had severely injured Mr. Wen and stopped him from self-destructing. He found that the first, second, and third layers of the nether void formation were flashing with red light. Moreover, the red light was spreading toward the inner layers of the formation diagram. It seemed as if the formation diagram was going to surround the formation diagram. Chapter 1129. Even though Mr. Wen was a grandmaster in matrices, his abilities were considered decent among the mid-Dharma adepts. It was a pity that he was up against Lu Ping, who was trying his best to cut through the Gordian knot, as well as the Gentian formation that Lu Ping still did not know what it was. Therefore, when Mr. Wen was surrounded by Lu Ping's natal Gentian formation, his fate was basically set in stone. After killing Mr. Wen, Lu Ping retracted the natal elemental formation and saw Deng Mingzheng pacing back and forth anxiously after the third array formation was destroyed by Lu Ping. Deng Mingzheng kept looking back at the fifth array formation that was destroyed by the 7-colored restriction breaking charm, the fourth array formation that was destroyed by Lu Ping's restriction breaking charm, and the third array formation that was destroyed by the natal elemental formation. Senior, we're in trouble. Lu Ping followed Deng Ming's finger and found that the second formation behind him had turned bright red. Around the formation that had been destroyed by Lu Ping, the third, fourth, and fifth formations had also been dyed red. Can we still get out now? Deng Ming smiled bitterly and said, we can't get out. 3 formations have been destroyed in a row, and it's obvious that the matrices in the Forgotten Kong Ming formation have noticed us. The Forgotten Kong Ming formation was originally a complete system. Even though it's only a broken formation now, the matrices in the formation can still affect our surroundings from afar. Just like the matrices that were killed by you just now, he was only behind one formation, but he was able to control several formations around him to attack you at the same time. Does that mean that the formations in front of us have been altered and can't be destroyed? That's not it. It's just that the process will be difficult, and what we need now is time. The matrices that are rushing here are obviously doing the same. They're trying to delay us. How many matrices are there? Deng Ming looked at the second formation and saw that it was the color of blood. He sighed and said, there are many. Senior has destroyed 3 formations in a row, and all of them are damaged beyond repair. This has already angered everyone. Lu Ping's expression changed. He had already experienced the terror of the matrices in the Forgotten Kong Ming formation. If it weren't for the rainbow charm, he would not have been able to escape from Mr. Wen's trap at the 5th formation. Senior, the only thing we can do now is to escape as soon as possible. We can't run away. We can hide in the formation and hide our identities as the ones who destroyed it. That way, we might be able to survive. Lu Ping took a deep breath and said, you're right. Let's go to the 6th formation. Lu Ping quickly walked towards the array formation. Deng Ming, who was behind him, was startled for a moment before he quickly caught up to him and said, Senior, you should still have a restriction-breaking charm with you, right? In my opinion, why don't we escape from the array formation next to the 4th array formation before the 2 arrays turn red? Lu Ping didn't turn his head and said, "The forgotten Kong Ming formation has a radius of 1,000 miles. They can easily sense the location of the destroyed formation. How can they not know that we're going to escape?" Deng Ming stared blankly for a moment and said, But the sixth formation is different. The deeper the formation is, the more difficult it will be for other formation masters to break through it. It will also be more difficult for them to monitor us. Even for a formation master, it is extremely difficult to control the inner formation freely in a short period of time. This is also the reason why the formation master who attacked us before attacked between the fourth and fifth formation. Now that you have the animal skin formation diagram, I will give you a 5-colored restriction breaking talisman to weaken the formation. We already have the spiritual materials and tools to break the formation. As long as we open the sixth formation, we will be able to win time. Where did you get the spirit materials and tools to break the formation? Lu Ping threw an interspatial pouch full of items into his hands and said, "The array grandmaster from before is already dead. These are the array formation tools he left behind." Deng Ming had obtained a lot of formation tools from the storage artifact of the corpse. However, the friar had used up a lot of them. There were a few extremely rare tools among them. Deng Ming was overjoyed. But they weren't enough to make up for the basic tools that could be used in large quantities. However, Mr. Wen was different. He had just entered the forgotten Kong Ming formation not long ago. So he hadn't used most of his formation tools yet. Moreover, he was born in the Yuan clan. Although he wasn't a direct descendant of the clan, he was still a direct descendant of the clan. So, it was obvious that he had made sufficient preparations to enter the forgotten Kong Ming formation. Hundreds of formation tools were arranged according to the patterns on the animal skin map. Suddenly, a fiery light condensed and shot out from the side of the formation. It was aimed at Deng Ming, who had taken back the golden abacus. He was engrossed in calculating something. A sword light streaked across the sky and shattered the fireball into a shower of sparks. Lu Ping's heart sank. Someone has found me so soon. Several fireballs shot out from the formation after Lu Ping had destroyed the fireball. This time, they weren't aimed at Deng Ming. Instead, they were aimed at the formation tools that Deng Ming had arranged within a radius of 200 feet. However, several brilliant lights flashed before the fireballs could fall on the formation tools. Then, the fireballs were shattered in midair. Lu Ping's decisiveness in shattering the array formation's fireball had clearly caused the cultivator controlling the array formation to be wary. Lu Ping could also tell from the cultivator's 2 attacks that his attainments in array formations weren't too high. At least, he couldn't be compared to Mr. Wen, who could easily suppress Lu Ping's array formation. Lu Ping's cultivation in array formations couldn't be compared to Mr. Wen's. At this moment, Deng Ming suddenly shouted from behind, "Oh no!" Lu Ping was startled. "What's wrong?" Deng Ming pointed at the 6th formation and said, "Someone has already discovered our intentions and is already using the transmission of the formation to stop Junior from breaking the formation." Lu Ping looked at the 6th formation. The protective wall of the 6th formation had been dyed with a layer of faint red radiance. Moreover, the red radiance seemed to be getting thicker as time passed. "How's the arrangement of the formation going?" "According to the animal skin map, it's almost done. But I'm afraid that there will be many more variables." Deng Ming's voice had barely faded when the other 2 formations on the 5th layer were destroyed. Then, they joined forces with the previous formation to launch a pincer attack. The mastery of these 2 formations was clearly above the mastery of the previous one. Not only were the magic spells condensed in the formation more ferocious, but they were also linked together in an extremely dense manner. The mastery of the previous mastery of the formation couldn't be compared. Lu Ping didn't know how many mastery masters were behind these 2 newly activated formations. But there was no doubt that the situation of these 2 masters was worsening. Fortunately, with Deng Ming's reminder, Lu Ping had already prepared for a rainy day and used the art of sea deception to hide their appearances when the 2 began to set up the 6th formation. Now, they were not afraid of being recognized and hunted down in the future. Lu Ping used the seeping sword technique with his pair of flying swords. A dense wall of sword light was formed behind the two of them. All the attacks were dissolved. Lu Ping seemed to feel that it wasn't enough. He stretched out his hand and pulled from left to right. A curtain was immediately pulled open. Auspicious clouds began to spread outwards. The seeping sword technique formed a wall of fog. All the attacks were dissolved before they could even break through the fog. Even if they broke through the obstruction of the fog, they were like clay oxen entering the sea. No one knew what was behind the fog. Lu Ping's expression was calm as he said, "You have to hurry up." Deng Ming said, "The sixth layer of the nether void array is already considered the inner area. Even the top master of formations in the cultivation world would have to spend a lot of effort to break it without a method. This is why once a master of formations breaks the sixth and seventh formation, they can be called a master of formations. Therefore, these masters of formations will at most come from the fifth layer. It's almost impossible for them to directly run in front of us and attack us." Lu Ping watched as Deng Ming spoke and connected the formation tools that had been set up. Finally, they gathered on the formation plate in his hand. Then, like cutting a piece of meat, he hesitantly inserted a top-quality spirit stone from the corpse into the formation plate. Lu Ping saw all this. He smiled and said, "Now there are 6 formations behind us that have been activated. If you don't hurry up, I'm afraid I won't be able to hold them off." Only then did Deng Ming realize that the reason why he could finish setting up the formation so easily was because Lu Ping had taken on all the disturbances from the outside. At this time, the 6th formation in front of them had been dyed with a faint layer of pink. Deng Ming did not dare to hesitate and said, "Now is the time. Senior, please help me." Without saying anything, Lu Ping slapped a 5-color restriction breaking talisman on the protective wall of the formation. The layer of pink light used to strengthen the formation's defense suddenly collapsed under the 5-color light, and then the 6th formation itself began to become chaotic. Deng Ming took this opportunity to activate the array formation that he had set up, and a ray of light immediately appeared on the protective wall of the 6th array formation. The ray of light moved in a straight line from bottom to top, and only stopped when it reached a length of 5 feet. Then, under the astonished gazes of the two, it began to shrink. Deng Ming seemed to suddenly think of something, and he shouted, "Senior, this light is the gap of the door. You only need to open it." Lu Ping, who was gritting his teeth and taking out the second 5-color restriction breaking talisman, was stunned. He waved his hand behind him, and the 2 flying swords flew back and inserted into the gap. A series of deafening roars suddenly sounded behind him, giving Deng Ming a fright. Only then did he know that although Lu Ping had been calm on the surface, in fact, he had blocked such a fierce attack. The 2 flying swords were pried upward, and the gap was indeed opened by 3 inches. Lu Ping was delighted. He suddenly clenched his hands, and 2 big hands of Yuan Qi immediately grabbed the gap. Then Lu Ping suddenly pulled back, and the Fa Xiang behind him surged out like a volcanic eruption. With a sound like tearing cloth, a door was suddenly torn from the protective wall. Chapter 1130. Hurry up! While Lu Ping was shouting, Deng Ming hurriedly gathered up as many tools as he could and plunged into the 6th array formation. At the same time, the cloud sail behind Lu Ping could no longer withstand the combined attacks of the array formation masters. A badly wounded golden rock wobbled as it held a small banner in its hand. The golden rock flew into Lu Ping's hand before the auspicious clouds in the sky could disperse. Lu Ping looked back in silence, then turned and entered the 6th array formation. The portal that Lu Ping had forcibly pulled open was immediately reopened. The light from the 5-foot-long gap began to disappear at the same time from both ends. The 6th array formation's protective wall was finally closed. Then, an overwhelming barrage of spells smashed into the protective wall of the 6th array formation and disappeared. Lu Ping had just turned around to enter the 6th array formation when he heard Deng Ming's miserable howl. Lu Ping knew something was wrong. A black light flashed in his hand and the water-controlling flag floated above Deng Ming's head, blocking a cyan-colored blade of light. Lu Ping's face darkened. This attack was much stronger than the one he encountered at the 5th layer of the array formation. Clearly, The sixth layer of the array formation was far more powerful than the fifth layer of the array formation. Furthermore, the cultivator who was able to sense the sixth layer of the array formation in such a short period of time must also be very skilled in the art of array formations. However, when Lu Ping stepped into the sixth layer of the array formation, he suddenly froze. Then, he looked around the entire array formation space as if he was trying to confirm something. Then, he heaved a sigh of relief and his expression relaxed again. How is it? Lu Ping's divine thought swept in an instant and found that there were 3 arrays on the 6th level adjacent to the one they had broken. 2 of them had a clear red light on the surface. One of them was the one that had previously condensed a spell to injure Deng Ming. The other 2 arrays were only faintly dyed red. Obviously, someone had just noticed this place. Not bad. I didn't expect that someone had already gone around to the 6th array formation to surround us. Obviously, the person's attainment in array formation is very high. I don't know how many layers of arrays there are, but he can actually condense a spell to attack. Deng Ming was hit before mainly because he was caught off guard. He did not expect that someone would ambush in the 6th array formation so quickly. However, Lu Ping heard something from Deng Ming's words and said in a sharp voice, "You mean there is no one behind the array formation that attacked you?" Deng Ming took out a medicinal pellet from a jade bottle that Lu Ping tossed over and swallowed it. He mumbled, "That's right. He's another top-notch array formation grandmaster. He's able to control the 6th floor's array formation through the layers of array formations. What bad luck." Deng Ming got up from the ground and was about to go to the 7th array formation with the water-controlling flag. Unexpectedly, he was stopped by Lu Ping and said, "Wait." Deng Ming looked at Lu Ping in confusion and said, "What's wrong?" Lu Ping said, "Do you know how to set up an array formation to isolate the other party's surveillance? Always letting these array formation masters monitor us through the Kongming array formation, I always feel restricted." Deng Ming's face was still filled with confusion. He said, "This kind of formation is simple, but it's useless. We will have to open the 7th formation sooner or later. Once we open the new formation, our whereabouts will be discovered." Lu Ping nodded and said, "You set it up." Deng Ming did not understand, but he still set up a simple array formation according to Lu Ping's instructions. Then he turned to look at Lu Ping and said, "Senior, the array formation has been set up, but it is limited to this array space. Once we touch the array formation, we will be noticed by other array formation masters." Lu Ping nodded slightly and said with a smile, "I know." Then, Lu Ping looked around, waved his hand, and a long sword shot out. The long sword split into 5 sword rays in midair and slashed at the surrounding 6th layer array formations, as well as the 7th layer array formation in front of him. Boom. Clearly, Lu Ping's 1 sword 5 slashes was extremely powerful. Even the 7th layer array formation's protective wall was shaken by the slash, let alone the other 4 6th layer array formations. Lu Ping looked at Deng Ming, who was getting more and more confused, and said with a smile, "After you see what I show, I'm afraid you will have to join Jinling forever." Deng Ming was stunned, but he also knew that this was a matter of life and death. Naturally, Lu Ping would not joke around with his life. So what Lu Ping showed next would be a trump card that Jinling would not reveal in front of others. After seeing it, he would either join Jinling or be killed by Lu Ping. Deng Ming nodded solemnly and said, "Junior understands. Senior, feel free to do as you please." Lu Ping smiled and slashed out with the flying sword in his hand again. The sword light split into 5 and slashed at the 5 array formations in front of him. Deng Ming, who was watching from the side, could clearly see that these 5 sword lights were hitting the exact same spots as the previous 5 sword lights. He couldn't help but gasp in shock. But then, Lu Ping seemed to be interested in this game. The flying sword in his hand flew out again. It was the same flying sword and 5 sword lights hit the same place. This time, even Deng Ming could not understand it. However, right after the 3 strikes, Lu Ping's hands suddenly formed a series of hand seals and struck at the array formation closest to him. Then, he formed another hand seal and struck out another 5 hand seals in a row, all of them striking at the same spot where the 3 sword lights had struck. At this time, Deng Ming finally understood that Lu Ping's 3 slashes were obviously for a reason. After Lu Ping's 5 mysterious seals were imprinted on the 5 protective walls of the arrays in front of him, the entire array space suddenly shook. The gradually emerging red light gradually began to fade. It seemed that the 5 arrays suddenly isolated the array formation masters who tried to peep through the connection of the nether void array. However, Lu Ping's actions were far from finished. The moment the red light faded, Lu Ping made several more seals with his hands. At the same time, his eyes suddenly shot out a dense green light, looking at the 5 protective walls of the arrays one by one. Every time the 3 pure eyes seemed to detect something, Lu Ping would hit the protective walls of the arrays with his palm. Then a scene that surprised Deng Ming and made him ecstatic appeared. Suddenly, more than a dozen flickering lights appeared on the protective walls of the arrays. They were the nodes of the arrays that Deng Ming had to spend a lot of effort to find every time he cracked the arrays. At this time, they were easily displayed on the arrays. However, these nodes of the arrays were now moving on the protective walls at a slow speed. However, after all, Deng Ming was a master of arrays. In a moment, he noticed the pattern of these nodes of the arrays. He was delighted and hurriedly recorded it. When he returned here in the future, he could dissect the composition of these arrays by folding the nodes of the arrays and turn it into his own accumulation of knowledge in arrays. The green light in Lu Ping's eyes shone brighter. At this time, Deng Ming saw Lu Ping suddenly pointing with one finger. A node of the light spot on the protective wall of the arrays on the left suddenly shone brightly, but it stopped moving there. Then, Lu Ping's finger pointed on the protective wall of the second array. Another moving light spot suddenly stopped and shone brightly. Lu Ping pointed 5 times in a row. Each node of the arrays on the protective walls of the 5 arrays was touched and shone brightly. At this time, Deng Ming was so shocked that he couldn't speak. He saw Lu Ping fumble around in his storage magic tool for a moment. Then he opened his hand and 8 crystal-clear stone beads rolled in his palm. He said, "Do you recognize these things?" Looking at Deng Ming's confused eyes, Lu Ping chuckled and said, "Do you know about the Kong Ming essence?" What? It would be a joke to say that Deng Ming didn't know about the Kong Ming essence. How many array masters in the world of cultivation didn't know about the Kong Ming essence? However, since the destruction of the Kong Ming faction, no one had ever seen the Kong Ming essence with their own eyes. Lu Ping no longer paid attention to Deng Ming, who was at a loss of what to do. Instead, he picked 5 out of the 8 Void Ming essences and shot them at the 5 glowing spots on the 5 array formations. As soon as the Void Ming essences came into contact with the glowing spots, the Void Ming essences fused into the glowing spots. Then, the glowing spots quickly dimmed to the same level as the other nodes on the 5 array formations. Then, all the nodes on the 5 array formations fell silent. Deng Ming was confused and he asked Lu Ping, "Senior, this is pup?" Before he finished speaking, a soft sound rang out, and 5 rays of light shot out from the 5 protective walls of the array formation. Deng Ming was stunned. Although the nodes of the array formation had disappeared from the protective walls, according to his calculations of the connection point of the array formation where he first saw the node of the array formation, the rays of light came from the spot where the speck of light had integrated with the Kong Ming essence. After the 5 rays of light shot out, they suddenly split into densely packed threads in midair and intertwined with each other, gradually forming a set of complex patterns. Deng Ming's eyes widened and he said, This is a teleportation array?" Lu Ping, who was beside him, patted his shoulder and said, Hee, let's go." Deng Ming clearly hadn't recovered from the magical method of hiding an array within an array. When he heard Lu Ping's words, he casually asked, "Where are we going?" However, he had already been pulled up by Lu Ping and pulled into the teleportation array suspended in midair by countless threads of light. Deng Ming suddenly came to his senses and said happily, Are we going to the Kong Ming ruins?" The teleportation array suddenly opened the moment the 2 of them entered. As the white light flickered, not only did the 2 of them disappear, but also Deng Ming's surprised words. After a few flashes of light, Lu Ping and Deng Ming had already disappeared from the array formation. At the same time, the teleportation array formation that was formed from countless threads of light had also disappeared, leaving behind an empty space as if no one had ever been there. At the same time, the array formation's protective walls had recovered at some point and were glowing with a reddish hue. Chapter 1131. Less than an hour after Lu Ping and Deng Ming disappeared, one of the 6 formations, including the 6th formation that Lu Ping and the others had opened, suddenly flashed with a blood-red light. Afterwards, the red light gradually isolated the silhouette of a person in the center. The silhouette slowly walked out of the red light. It was an old man with white hair and a ruddy complexion. After the old man walked out, the dazzling red light gradually receded. It was still a blue formation wall, but not even a trace of red light could be seen. The old man looked around the formation space, and his expression became more and more shocked. It seemed that there was something extremely difficult for him to understand. "Brother Ji, what happened just now? How come 3 spirit arrays were destroyed?" A voice came from behind another formation. As soon as the voice finished speaking, a door appeared on the formation wall, and a black-robed old man walked out from it. After the black-robed old man walked out, the door on the formation wall quickly closed. At the same time, the red light on the formation wall began to dissipate. "You saw it too." The old man just arrived, and he was also confused. "However, this place is very strange. The 2 of them should have arrived here, but then disappeared." The black-robed Laozu looked at the formation space, and a confused expression appeared on his face. "That's strange. Could it be that the 2 of them opened another formation and escaped?" The old man surnamed Ji wasn't too sure. "It's hard to say, but it's not very likely. If the 2 of them really have that kind of ability, then their mastery of formations is even greater than ours. Do you think it's possible?" The black-robed Laozu said, "That's true. In the cultivation world, there aren't many who can surpass us in formations. Even if there are, their strength is limited. It wouldn't be easy for them to escape from the Nether Void formation without us knowing." Another old man walked out from behind the formation and said, "I remember that in this generation, there was a formation master from a medium-sized sect. He was quite skilled in formations, and the old man met him once. That person's sect seemed to have been destroyed, and in order to avoid being hunted down, he fled to the South Sea and hid here. After that, he stayed here for dozens of years to study formations. In the past 10 years, we haven't heard much about him. I wonder if this has anything to do with him?" The 7th formation suddenly rumbled. The 3 of them stopped talking and looked at the formation wall. A skinny old man squeezed out from the 7th formation and said, There are dozens of formations in the 7th layer of the Nether Void formation, and every one of them has a unique way of entering and exiting. It's only because of the old man's stature. If it was a fatty, they wouldn't be able to enter even if they broke the formation." The old man looked at the 3 of them and said, "There aren't any signs of people coming out of the formation recently." The old man thought that they would come to the inner layer of the Nether Void formation, so he spent a bit of effort to get here. He didn't think that he would come up empty. The 3 of them nodded. The skinny old man said, "How is it? Is there any news of the people fighting?" The 3rd old man shook his head and said, "This is the strange part. Neither side left any clues behind. After chasing them all the way here, the one who won seemed to have disappeared." The skinny old man seemed to have a higher status than the other 3. Hearing this, he said, "There's a master. Guess who did the old man discover that had entered the Nether Void formation?" Without waiting for the other 3 to ask, the skinny old man said, "The lackey of the Yuan family, Wen Yuan of the Wen family. It's him. If it's him, it's possible. That person can be considered to have a long history of learning, and his attainments in formations are extremely profound. Even we have to admit that his level is not inferior to ours. After all these years, it's not impossible for him to surpass us." "I don't think so. Wen Yuan is considered to be the best in the formation among the 2nd-generation adepts. If he really was the one who set up the formation here to kill someone, with such a geographical advantage, he might even be able to deal with a late Dharma adept. How could he have been killed so easily? The four of them looked at each other again, as if they had fallen into a dead end. At this moment, the sixth formation that Lu Ping and Deng Ming had broken earlier suddenly flashed. A monk with messy hair and a pair of blurred eyes, as if he was drunk, stumbled and crashed into the sixth formation wall. He looked at the four of them and said, "What if he had a talisman? A seven-colored talisman." "What? A seven-colored talisman? That's why." That makes sense. No wonder he was able to break 3 formations in such a short period of time. I heard that when Yuan is also at the mid-Dharma stage. However, he is an expert in matrices, so there is a limit to how strong he is. If he really is ambushing someone, and that person has a talismanship-breaking talisman, then I'm afraid it's not just that he has the means to deal with grand adepts. Instead, even an early Dharma adept of the 3rd generation might be able to defeat him. After all, he is a mid-Dharma adept. I heard from the disciples that he had appeared in the 5 elements tortoise a few days ago. He must have gone to strengthen his training. In that case, even if someone used a talisman to break the formation, I'm afraid that the person would not be too weak to kill him. Oh, the old man has also heard about this. I heard that the peacock royalty suffered a great loss this time in the 5 elements tortoise. A few of their juniors were tricked and almost died. A few elders rushed to rescue them, but after the tortoise disappeared into the void, they were strangely surrounded by Mara's army. Out of the 3 late Dharma adepts, 2 were actually killed. This peacock royalty is going to suffer a lot. The old man has also heard about this. I heard that the Yuan family, the Lingyun Valley, and the Wuxing school have joined forces to plot for the peacock royalty's natal plume feather. The peacock royalty is not going to suffer a loss. Even if they lost 2 great Dharma adepts, with the peacock royalty's strength, not to mention 2 great Dharma adepts, even 2 pure Yang Laozu would not be a problem. When Lu Ping and Deng Ming's vision became clear again, they were already on an island. "Senior, don't tell me this is..." Lu Ping chuckled and said, "Perhaps. After all, this is my first time here as well. But since you've already joined our sect, you should change the way you address me. You and I are of the same generation. I entered the sect before you, so you can just call me Brother Lu." Deng Ming wanted to postpone it, but Lu Ping had already said, "That's settled then," rejecting his request. Among the 3 generations of adepts in the Jinling sect, there was now one more formation master who was about to become a grandmaster. The 2 of them were on a stone platform in a remote area of the island. At this time, there was a 5-pointed star teleportation pattern on the stone platform. Deng Ming came down from the stone platform and saw Lu Ping squatting down on the stone platform. Then he formed a seal with both hands and pressed it towards the teleportation formation on the stone platform. 5 rays of light burst out from the 5 corners of the teleportation formation. When the light dissipated, 5 crystal-clear beads appeared in the 5 corners. They were the spatial essence that Lu Ping had integrated into the 5 nodes of the formation. The island was full of broken walls and ruins left behind by spells and magic powers. Due to the passage of time, it had gradually become desolate. Many places were covered by thick dust, and weeds and vines grew everywhere. But one could still see how magnificent the layout and buildings of the island were. Unlike Lu Ping, Deng Ming came here with a different purpose. He came here with the mentality of a pilgrimage. Lu Ping stretched out his hand and a spatial door suddenly opened. Under Deng Ming's surprised gaze, a huge white tiger demon walked out. This giant tiger's cultivation was close to the late stage of the core forging realm. The moment it appeared, it bared its fangs at Deng Ming, and a murderous aura rushed towards him. In addition to formations, Deng Ming naturally had some knowledge. He was surprised and said, "Hanging Eyes White Tiger Clan?" Lu Ping patted the giant tiger's head, and a golden light rose around the giant tiger. An 11 or 12-year-old child appeared in front of Deng Ming. Lu Ping introduced him. "This is Lu Shaohai, my follower. Shaohai, this is your martial uncle Deng." Lu Shaohai glanced at Deng Ming and said, "He's so weak. Although his cultivation is higher than Shaohai's, Shaohai can definitely beat him to a pulp." Deng Ming didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He saw Lu Ping patting the child's head and said with a smile, "You naughty child, your martial Uncle Deng is a dignified formation master. How can a guy with a brain full of muscles like you understand?" As they spoke, a few more children came out of the space portal. Deng Ming could see clearly that these people were all surging with demonic qi. They were undoubtedly cultivators of the demon clan. Samling, Lucina, Debeo, Peach Blossom, Amethyst Queen Bee, and others were all released by Lu Ping. Lu Degue was sleeping because he had received Xiang Shiping's bloodline secret technique. Once he woke up, his aptitude would be greatly improved. Deng Ming said in disbelief, Senior brother Lu, are they all your followers?" Deng Ming was shocked in his heart. What kind of origin are these demon cultivators in front of me? The more I look at those 3 children, the more they look like green sea snakes. Am I hallucinating? And that rat demon, is that a spirit-seeking rat? A shape-shifting spirit-seeking rat? What a joke! Shouldn't it be from the embroidered rat clan in the Endless Mountains? But the shape-shifting cultivators of the embroidered rat clan are all handsome and dignified. How could this rat demon be so fat? There was also the phoenix, the little girl, Lu Taohua, and the little girl with 2 pairs of wings, Lu Xilan. Who are these people? Just as Deng Ming was pondering, Lu Ping's voice sounded in his ear. Junior brother Deng, I'm afraid we'll have to stay on Kongming Island for some time. Take these troublesome things and explore the island first. When the Kongming sect was destroyed, although Laozu looted everything in the Kongming sect, there's no guarantee that he didn't leave anything behind. The spiritual qi here is abundant, so the Kongming sect's spiritual veins are not damaged. You can also cultivate here for a period of time and focus on studying the formation inheritance you've obtained. I need to cultivate here for a period of time so that I can pass my first thunder tribulation. Chapter 1132. There was no doubt that Lu Ping had come to the South China Sea at the expense of delaying his own advancement to the mid-Dharma stage. Although the Kongming sect's original location had been breached by the cultivators of the various overseas sects, the Kongming sect's protective formation system, which was made up of countless formations, was already showing signs of collapsing. Although the cultivators of the various sects were confident that they could break the protective formation, they did not have the slightest confidence that they would be able to escape with their lives if the formation were to collapse. As a result, although much of the Kongming Island had been plundered in a hurry, items that were difficult to take away, such as the spirit veins and mineral veins, had been left behind. For thousands of years, no one had been able to enter the Kongming Island. At this time, the Kongming Island was supported by at least 2 or 3 large spirit veins. Not only did the protective formation that had originally collapsed continue to exist in a strange way, but the island was also filled with plants that grew wildly. Among them, there was no lack of spirit herbs. Although these rare items were extremely rare, they were of sufficient age, and the proportion of spirit herbs that were 3,000 years old was considered high. Furthermore, although the treasures on the island had almost been completely plundered by the various overseas sects, there was no guarantee that there were no treasures left behind. With the formation master, Deng Ming, leading Samling and the rest on the island to search for treasures, even if they were to encounter any traps, they would be able to deal with them easily. At this time, Lu Ping had already arrived at the center of the Kongming Island. This was the place where the spirit veins of the Kongming Island were concentrated. The sky was covered with a layer of white light. The Kongming Palace here had long been destroyed in the Great Battle of the Kongming sect, and the cultivators of the various sects had naturally put in a lot of effort to excavate the central palace of the Kongming sect. Even the foundations of the palace had been dug out. However, who would have thought that the most important treasures of the Kongming sect were not in the central palace, nor were they in the so-called Heaven's Inheritance? Looking at the mess on the ground, Lu Ping began to slowly walk around the ruins of the central palace. After a while, he finally found the remnants of the formation that had originally surrounded the central palace. Lu Ping formed a seal with both hands and struck the broken array. The broken array suddenly shook and actually lit up with a silver light. Lu Ping was immediately delighted. The Kongming sect had indeed reached the pinnacle of formations. This formation used to hide treasures had been disguised as an incomplete formation, and then a similar formation had been grafted onto this incomplete formation. The two formations had combined to form a complete defensive formation around the central palace. When the invading Dharma adepts from the various sects had destroyed the defensive array, all their attention had been on the central palace. They did not know that the array that had been destroyed was actually a complete array. However, in the eyes of the Dharma adepts, it was not worth paying attention to. Just as Lu Ping activated the incomplete formation according to the records left behind in Kong Wu's inheritance, the entire formation that surrounded the central palace suddenly flashed with a silver light. Two rays of green light shot out from Lu Ping's eyes and penetrated the silver light. After a while, he seemed to have discovered something. His finger quickly pointed out, and there was a crisp ding sound. Then, Lu Ping used his spatial powers and appeared on the other side of the formation in a flash. Lu Ping estimated his position, and the moment he appeared on the other side of the formation, he once again used his 3 pure eyes. It was as if he was racing against time. In an instant, Lu Ping's finger pointed out again, and a crisp ding sound rang out from the silver light. Using the same method, Lu Ping very quickly appeared on the third spot and found a spot in the formation that was covered by the silver light. Then, he used his finger to point at the spot in the formation that was covered by the silver light. At this moment, Lu Ping opened his palm, and 3 empty spirits appeared in Lu Ping's hand. Although the 8 empty spirits in Lu Ping's hand were similar, if Deng Ming was here, he would actually be able to tell that these 8 empty spirits were actually different. And at this moment, the 3 empty spirits in Lu Ping's hand were actually different from the 5 empty spirits that Lu Ping had used to use the teleportation array. The 3 empty spirits were thrown out by Lu Ping, and they entered the formation that was covered by the silver light. At the 3 spots that Lu Ping had pointed at, the silver light that had been activated from the formation immediately split into 3 parts and returned to the positions of the 3 empty spirits. After the silver light had completely disappeared, there were only 3 bright silver lights left on the entire formation. These lights were like threads, intertwining in the air above the ruins of the central netherworld hall, forming the silhouette of a silver box that was 3 feet wide and 3 square feet wide. Lu Ping sighed in his heart. Who would have thought that the empty spirit sect would actually hide such a small space in the sky above the empty spirit hall? It was so exquisite and unimaginable. Without activating the formation, even the Dharma adepts and formation masters of the various sects who had participated in the destruction of the empty spirit hall thousands of years ago would not have realized that this treasure, which the empty spirit sect had called the foundation of the sect, was hidden right under their noses. Lu Ping slowly floated up into the air and arrived at the array formation space formed by the silver thread treasure box. On the surface of the box were 4 nodes of the array formation space. Back then, the 4 array formation grandmasters of the Kong Ming sect had been in charge of the Kong Ming sect's Kong Ming essence, and each of them had infused one of the Kong Ming essence into one of the nodes of the array formation space. However, this was only a method of opening the space without destroying the exquisite space. The empty spirit sect naturally knew that in such a critical situation, it was impossible to gather the 4 formation masters who had been in charge of the empty spirit hall together. Hence, they naturally had other methods of opening the space. However, this method required the destruction of the space. Naturally, Lu Ping wouldn't feel the slightest bit of heartache over the destruction of this exquisite array formation. He slapped his hands on the array formation, and the silver lines on the spatial treasure box immediately began to break. Amidst a series of crackling sounds, the space around the spatial treasure box exploded. Spatial cracks and fragments spread out in all directions, but they were firmly stopped by a light barrier in front of Lu Ping. Lu Ping's divine will risked being swallowed by the cracks in the space to enter. Then, his eyes brightened, and his right hand suddenly reached in. A golden scale the size of a palm was pulled out by Lu Ping from the broken space. This was it. Although Lu Ping had been trying his best to remain calm, when he saw this item, his heart could not help but beat fiercely twice. As soon as Lu Ping held the golden scale in his hand, the array formation surrounding the central Kong Ming Hall instantly crumbled. Lu Ping did not care at all. He focused all his attention on the scale. The moment the scale appeared, the mysterious power that originated from his bloodline caused the Dharma form within Lu Ping's core space to shake. The entire Dharma form immediately began to roar and fly around in the core space. If it were not for Lu Ping's efforts to suppress it, the Dharma form would have definitely flown into the sky. According to the legends, this scale was something that Jiao Daoren had removed from the scale of his true soul body. It seemed that this legend was most likely true. However, what Lu Ping cared about was not the scale. Instead, it was the 2 secret techniques recorded on it. They were the foundation for the empty spirit sect to reach the peak of the cultivation world through formations. One of them was already famous in the cultivation world, and that was the Kongming sect's divine sense carving secret technique, which was passed down through the direct line of inheritance. Generally speaking, there were only 3 methods of array formation masters in the cultivation world. The first method was to use a combination of an array disk and an array formation tool. This method was the most common, and it was also the inevitable choice for many sect-protecting arrays and powerful arrays. The second method was to use restrictions to set up formations. This method was much rarer. It was fast but not long-lasting. It was usually used in emergency situations. Moreover, the range of the formation was small. The formation was not powerful, but it was difficult to deal with. Of course, there were also those who combined these 2 methods to take advantage of the strengths of the 2. However, this method was not considered the third method. The true third formation method was the Kongming faction's heirloom technique, which had long since been lost in the world of cultivation. The foundation of this secret technique was the Kongming faction's divine sense carving technique. The pinnacle of this technique was the Kongming faction's 32 Kongming essence. The other inheritance was the 9 forbidden treasures. It was true that there were only 9 forbidden treasures. However, strictly speaking, these 9 forbidden treasures were the reason why the Empty Spirit sect was known as the Holy Land of Formations. The Empty Spirit sect was unable to use these 9 forbidden treasures for weapon refinement. However, they discovered that the 9 forbidden treasures seemed to be closely related to formations. Later on, the formation masters of the Empty Spirit sect not only evolved the 9 forbidden treasures into 9 formations, but also used these 9 formations as the foundation to extend a series of formations that were famous in the cultivation world. They also created the Empty Spirit sect's sect-protecting formation system. The Empty Spirit sect's formation system was divided into 10 layers. The innermost layer around Empty Spirit Island, which was the 10th layer from the outside in, was actually the 9 forbidden treasures recorded on the scale. The best formation masters of the various sects who studied the secrets of formations in the Empty Spirit array had only managed to understand the 9th layer's extension of the formation. They were still unable to understand the 9 fundamental formations of the 10th layer. What Lu Ping needed were the 9 forbidden treasures, not the 9 fundamental formations of Empty Spirit Island that had evolved from the 9 forbidden treasures. However, after learning about the 9 forbidden treasures, it was naturally easy to understand the secrets of the 9 fundamental formations. Of course, it was easy for formation masters. Lu Ping knew nothing about it. Although Lu Ping did not know much about formations, he had the formation plate in hand. He had the ability to imitate the formation plate. He found a formation plate in Mr. Wen's storage instrument that looked decent. Then, like a cat trying to imitate a tiger, he set up a simple formation in the ruins of the Empty Spirit Hall. The location of the Empty Spirit Hall was also where the spirit veins of Empty Spirit Island were most concentrated. The spirit chi in the area was very rich, and it could be used as a temporary place for him to train. Now that Lu Ping had achieved his goal in coming to the South Sea, he still needed to use these 2 secret techniques to complete one last preparation before he entered the mid-Dharma stage. Chapter 1133. What the 7th Patriarch of Sky Opening Sect had passed on to the cultivation world were not only the various cultivation methods, divine sense, and secret cultivation techniques, but also most of the other cultivation arts were inherited from these 7 Laozu. Among them, the most famous was Taoist Gui. This Laozi, who was known as the originator of alchemy, had made more achievements in alchemy than he had in other aspects of cultivation. In fact, in addition to Taoist Ge, the other 6 members of the 7th Patriarch of Sky-Opening sect also had their own strengths in other aspects. For example, Taoist Ape was good at controlling the spiritual veins in the world, searching for mineral veins, and brewing various spiritual wines and liquids. Peng Daoren had a special fondness for puppets. Luan Daoist was good at cultivating various spiritual herbs and spiritual materials. Taoist Chan's talisman-making technique was unparalleled in the world, and it was even rumored that the complete 7-colored restriction-breaking talisman actually came from his inheritance, Taoist who had a set of secret crafting techniques. And Jiao Daoren was not only famous for his divine sense of swordsmanship known as one sword to break all things, but he was also the originator of formations in the cultivation world. One only needed to look at the heavenly poisonous wall that had stood erect for tens of thousands of years to understand Jiao Daoren's attainments in formations. At this time, according to the jade slip left by Kangwu Laozi, the origin of the scale in Lu Ping's hand was explained by the ancestors of the Kongming sect from the heavenly poisonous wall. Lu Ping could not tell whether it was true or not, so he just believed it for the time being. Among the 7th Patriarch of Sky-Opening sect, Peng Daoren had the Thunder Calabash of 7 treasures, Taoist Ape had the Cauldron of Heaven and Earth, Luan Daoist had the 7-feather fan, Taoist Chan had the Blood-Melting Needle, Taoist who had the Overlord Hammer, and even Taoist Gui had a Cauldron of Fate. These 6 famous treasures left behind by the 7th Patriarch in the process of splitting the heavens were called the 6 heavenly artifacts of splitting the heavens. As for Jiao Daoren, Laozi, who believed in one sword to break all things, never had a fixed flying sword in his hand. Furthermore, the flying swords he used were extremely ordinary, especially after Peng Daoren used the 7 Thunder Treasures calabash to suppress Jiao Daoren. As a result, people said that if Jiao Daoren also had a flying sword that was as famous as the 6 heaven-splitting artifacts, the ranking of the 7th Patriarch of Heaven-Splitting Artifact would have to be rearranged. This was something that many cultivators felt regretful about. It was rumored that when Daoist Jiao split open the heavens, he had at least 6 or 7 flying swords in his hands. All of them broke due to being unable to bear the burden of splitting open the heavens. This showed that Daoist Jiao didn't have a single magic treasure that he could use. This was also the reason why sword practitioners in the cultivation world would often use a flying sword as their life weapon at the beginning of their cultivation. In this way, the quality of the natal flying sword could be improved to the greatest extent. At least, it would not break easily in the process of fighting, so that the flying sword could become the shackles of one's strength. Even the sword lineage, which regarded Jiao Daoren as the ancestor of sword cultivation, had to take this as a warning. Did Jiao Daoren not realize this problem? From the point of view of the Kongming sect's previous Laozi recorded by Kongming Laozi, Jiao Daoren had long realized this problem. He had also tried to create a suitable flying sword magic treasure, at least to the level of the 6 heavenly artifacts of splitting the heavens. The item that Jiao Daoren had tried to use to forge his natal flying sword was the horn of Jiao Daoren's true soul. This treasure was originally the horn on the head of Jiao Daoren's true soul. In the past, before this world had been created, Jiao Daoren and Peng Daoren had fallen from the sky and landed in the westernmost part of the western wilderness, creating the source of the 2 major rivers of the Central Plains, the Qingming River and the Yulon River. Jiao Daoren's true soul horn was broken when it fell into Sacred Fall Lake. Unfortunately, when Jiao Daoren used this true soul horn to find Taoist who was famous for refining weapons, he did not expect that Taoist who would refuse. As for why Taoist who refused, although the ancestors of the Kongming sect did not know the reason, they speculated that it was because Taoist who did not want Jiao Daoren's strength to be greatly improved, or because the other Laozi of splitting the heavens, especially Peng Daoren, secretly obstructed him. It should be known that Jiao Daoren only took a flying sword casually, and his strength was only slightly weaker than that of Peng Daoren. If he really had a peerless flying sword, who among the 7th Patriarch of splitting the heavens could be his opponent? Although it was just a speculation of the Kongming sect, this reasoning was extremely logical. After Jiao Daoren's request to refine a flying sword was rejected by Taoist who Jiao Daoren was so angry that he abandoned the true soul horn. As for where Jiao Daoren threw it, no one knew except Jiao Daoren. Later, Jiao Daoren mistakenly took a poisonous pill made by Taoist Gui and hurt his origin. He recuperated in the secret land of Perished and set up the heavenly poisonous wall to prevent the poison derived from the poisonous pill. During this period, Jiao Daoren seemed to start thinking about refining a flying sword again. But this time, Jiao Daoren did not intend to rely on others. Instead, he wanted to refine a natal flying sword by himself. Therefore, he left this scale, which recorded the secret method of carving divine thoughts and the Kongming 9 formations. Although Jiao Daoren wanted to refine a natal flying sword, he was not proficient in refining weapons. However, Jiao Daoren was a genius after all. Finally, he focused on his exquisite tactical formations. He concentrated 9 exquisite tactical formations into 9 precious prohibitions, and then carved precious prohibitions on the sword with the secret method of carving divine thoughts. In this way, as long as he found an excellent sword embryo, he could refine a natal flying sword by himself. Needless to say, this so-called excellent sword embryo was the broken horn from Jiao Daoren's body of the true spirit. Unfortunately, although Jiao Daoren figured out how to refine his own natal flying sword, he did not seem to have the time to do so. Later, when the 7th patriarch of the Sky Splitter mysteriously disappeared from the northern ice field, this scale was left in the heavenly poisonous wall. Later on, the ancestor of the Kongming sect found it by chance. After the ancestor of the Kongming sect obtained the scale, he studied the secrets of this scale and used it as the foundation to establish the Kongming sect, which became the #1 tactical formation sect in the cultivation world. However, the ancestors of the Kongming sect did not give up searching for the horn of the true spirit. Unfortunately, they still did not find anything, so the Kongming sect turned its attention to the large sections. They thought that a sacred object like the horn of the true spirit might have already been secretly hidden by the large sects with a long history. Unfortunately, the cultivators of the large sects were not fools. Very quickly, they discovered the means that the Kongming sect had left behind when they were building the sect-protecting tactical formations. Thus, the Kongming sect immediately became the target of everyone and became the target of everyone. In the end, the Kongming sect ended up being destroyed. Inside the tactical formation, Lu Ping thought about the cause and effect of all this, and he could not help but sigh in his heart. At this time, above Lu Ping's core space, the golden horn with a slight arc had begun to have an inexplicable connection with the Dharma power of the dragon since Lu Ping had advanced to the Dharma power stage. After obtaining this object from the deepest part of the sacred lake, Lu Ping naturally guessed the identity of this horn immediately. However, the whole thing was obviously unbelievable, so Lu Ping was still skeptical. It was not until he obtained the explanation in the treasure of Kongwu on Yuanling Island that he was 70% convinced. When he really held the scale in his hand, Lu Ping finally had no more doubts. The horn that he had obtained was very likely the object that Jiao Daoren had abandoned in the sacred lake after being rejected by Taoist Hu. With the golden scale in hand, the real essence in Lu Ping's blood surged, and like a torrent, it was injected into the golden scale. When the golden scale received Lu Ping's real essence, its surface suddenly flashed with a faint golden light, and the contents of the 2 secret techniques engraved on the surface of the scale became even more clear. Lu Ping activated the 3 pure true pupils, and he could even see a faint bluish-purple light slowly seeping through the runes engraved on the surface of the scale. Underneath the golden light, Lu Ping could even see a faint bluish-purple light slowly seeping through the runes engraved on the scale. The whole process lasted for a whole hour. If it were not for the purity of Lu Ping's real essence, ordinary cultivators would have used up most of their real essence just by refining it. As the refinement of Lu Ping's real essence became deeper and deeper, the golden light on the surface of the entire scale became more and more dazzling, even with a layer of purple. When the scale was finally refined, the dazzling light also became a little bit, and then Lu Ping's palm suddenly became empty, and the entire scale suddenly disappeared. Lu Ping's divine thought immediately sank into the core space. The moment the scale appeared inside, the Dharma form of the dragon had already wrapped it in the center of its body and flew around it. Just as Lu Ping was quietly waiting for the Dharma form of the dragon to use the scale, he saw the huge head of the Dharma form of the dragon suddenly tilt up, suddenly revealing the inverted scale under its jaw. The golden scale seemed to be attracted at this moment, and slowly flew towards the jaw of the Dharma form of the dragon. Lu Ping's Dharma form of the dragon was the condensation of the essence of the body. Although it had integrated a large amount of pure yang qi, it had not gone through the thunder tribulation after all. To put it bluntly, it did not have a physical body. However, after the scale flew under the jaw of the Dharma form, it merged with the inverted scale that was condensed from the essence of the body, causing the entire Dharma form to have a physical body. Golden and bluish-purple light suddenly exploded under the neck of the Dharma form. During the process of the two fusing, the two secret techniques that were engraved on the golden scale and the original magic seed that was previously on the inverted scale appeared at the same time. And at this moment, the entire surface of the Dharma form of the dragon also shone with a faint golden light because of the integration of the scale. The Dharma form of the dragon also seemed to be much more agile. And after the scale had integrated with the inverted scale of the Dharma form of the dragon, the horn that had been hanging high above the core space finally moved a little. The Dharma form of the dragon spiraled upwards, surrounding the horn in the center. Wisps of origin qi began to gather towards the horn, but Lu Ping was not in a hurry to refine it. Instead, he began to calm down and think about these two new secret techniques. If it were not for the fact that he had to turn this horn into a sort of true spirit before he went through the first thunder tribulation, Lu Ping would not have had to travel thousands of miles to the South Sea to find these two secret techniques after obtaining Kong Wu's legacy. In the end, he had no choice but to delay his advancement to the mid-Dharma stage. Chapter 1134. Although Lu Ping was not a sword cultivator, he knew that a good sword had to be nurtured with the origin qi as early as possible. Only then would the quality of the sword be higher and the chances of success would be greater. Moreover, this was a flying sword refined from the horn of the true spirit. The reason why Lu Ping had not summoned the thunder tribulation was because of a legend that had been passed down from ancient times. The cultivators who had listened to Jiao Doran's teachings had advised Jiao Doran to not refine a good sword. This way, he would not be suppressed by Peng Daoran. The followers of Jiao Doran had this idea. Many of them had even searched the cultivation world for all kinds of rare spiritual materials that could be used to refine a flying sword for Jiao Daoran. However, Jiao Daoran had always lacked interest in refining a flying sword. It was not until one time when Jiao Daoran gave a lecture that Jiao Daoran helplessly explained that a sword cultivator needed to become one with the sword, cultivating both life and death. Jiao Daoran once had a natal flying sword, but it was later destroyed because of a dangerous encounter. With his current cultivation base, unless he could use a rare treasure that came from the same source as him, he might not be able to restore 80 to 90% of the power of his natal flying sword. Otherwise, with his great divine power at that time, there was almost no difference between an ordinary spirit treasure and a pure yang spirit treasure in his hands. At that time, the cultivators and followers immediately asked when the natal flying sword would be completed. The other asked about the rare heaven and earth treasures of the same origin as Jiao Daoran. Jiao Doran's answer to the former was that he would at least need to welcome the first thunder tribulation and refine the pure yang qi to upgrade his natal flying sword to the peak of a spirit-nurturing treasure. This way, although it was still a little late for a real sword cultivator, he could make up for it through the thunder tribulation. The way to make up for it was to begin the thunder tribulation together with the natal flying sword when his Dharma power summoned the first thunder tribulation. This was basically a suicidal method. Most Dharma cultivators in the cultivation world did not die from various accidents or from the exhaustion of their lifespan, but from the thunder tribulation. Every lightning tribulation was a test of life and death for a cultivator. Even the most talented cultivator with the greatest accumulation of knowledge would not have a 100% success rate when facing a lightning tribulation. Needless to say, there were other factors involved in overcoming the lightning tribulation. When the Dharma power and the treasure went through the thunder tribulation at the same time, the thunder tribulation that was summoned was not as simple as 1 plus 1. In the past tens of thousands of years, there had been people in the cultivation world who had done this, but the conclusion was that those who had done this were people who did not want to die fast enough. Of course, this wasn't to say that no one had ever succeeded. However, those who were able to achieve such a feat were all top-notch figures in the cultivation world. Moreover, half of these people who succeeded had to pay the price of having their origin damaged and their cultivation stagnated. As for the other half who succeeded, they would definitely become characters who could summon the wind and summon the rain in the cultivation world. In the past 2,000 years, the only person in the cultivation world who had done this was the sky-splitting sword sage, Xiao Baiyu. His natal flying sword was not damaged, but Lao Tzu had enough luck. When he had just entered the Dharma manifestation stage, he had found the flying sword that was broken and abandoned when Jiao Daoren opened up the cultivation world of the East Sea when he was exploring the ruins. Although Jiao Daoren did not have a decent flying sword, and several of them were broken during the process of opening the sky, that was only in comparison to the other 6 Lao Tzu's heaven-opening artifacts. For the cultivators or followers of Lao Tzu, even these broken flying swords were comparable to top pure yang treasures that had gone through 3 thunder tribulations. Moreover, these flying swords that were used to open the sky also contained the mark of sword essence that Jiao Daoren had left behind when he used them. This Xiao Laozu was also bold enough. After returning to Skyrend, he resolutely fused the natal flying sword that he had nurtured for 200 to 300 years with the broken flying sword and refined it again, creating a celestial slaying sword. After that, this Laozu and the celestial slaying sword attracted the thunder tribulations at the same time. After narrowly escaping death, he took it back as his natal flying sword. After that, this Laozu could not be stopped. With his mid-Dharma manifestation cultivation, he killed the great cultivator of the Kuan-Fish clan and forced the Kuan-Fish clan to retreat thousands of miles from the East Sea. This shocked the entire cultivation world. It was then that people called him the #1 cultivator of the 2nd generation. There was no need to talk about what happened after that. Xiao Baiyu did not lose a single time when he tested the sword. After passing the 2nd thunder tribulations, he killed his way to Ziyang Palace. He challenged Ziyang Palace's pure yang sword immortal, LV Taiching, in a one-on-one fight and escaped unscathed. At that point, his status as the #1 cultivator of the 2nd generation was completely established. No one in the entire cultivation world, human or demon, had any objections. The celestial slaying sword also became famous and became one of the top flying swords in the cultivation world. Of course, using both the Dharma power and the magic treasure to face the first thunder tribulations was only a way for a sword cultivator to remedy the situation. It did not mean that every time a cultivator passed through the thunder tribulations, they would have to use their natal flying sword together. Otherwise, even if Xiao Baiyu was more talented than the heavens, he would not dare to let his Dharma power and celestial slaying sword go through the 2nd and 3rd thunder tribulations at the same time. At least when Xiao Baiyu passed the 3rd thunder tribulations and became a pure yang sword immortal, the celestial slaying sword in his hand was still a 2nd tribulation spiritual treasure. It had not gone through the 3rd thunder tribulations yet. Lu Ping wanted to take the risk of having the thunder tribulations multiply and pass the 1st thunder tribulations with the sword of the true spirit. First, he had to completely refine the horn of the true spirit into a flying sword at the peak of the spirit cultivation stage. At that time, Jiao Daoren's level of cultivation was already far beyond that of a Dharma adept. Hence, this method of using both the Dharma power and the magic treasure to face the thunder tribulations was not something that Jiao Daoren could use. The only remedy he could use was the 2nd method, which was to refine a flying sword with a rare treasure of the same origin. Naturally, there was no more suitable item of the same origin than Jiao Daoren's own horn of the true spirit. Unfortunately, Jiao Daoren was not good at refining weapons, and Taoist who obviously had some misgivings. Hence, this method did not work in the end. Jiao Daoren had to settle for the next best thing. He tried to figure out a way to refine a flying sword by himself. Thus, he came up with the divine will carving technique and the 9 treasured prohibitions that were formed by combining formations and prohibitions with his lifelong study of formations. At this time, the so-called divine will carving technique was more appropriate for Lu Ping to call it the divine will torturing technique. If Jiao Daoren had used this divine will carving technique, he might have been able to do it with ease. But after all, Lu Ping was just a minor repairs in the early stage of the Dharma realm. Even if his divine will was far superior to ordinary people, he could only be on par with a grand practitioner at most. Moreover, Jiao Daoren's so-called not good at refining weapons was only relative to Taoist too. Lu Ping really knew nothing about refining weapons. Fortunately, Jiao Daoren had left 9 treasured prohibitions condensed by formations, and Lu Ping only needed to use the divine will carving technique to imitate them. It took Lu Ping half a year to be able to use this secret method skillfully. But of course, he could not be mentioned in the same breath as Jiao Daoren. The prototype of the magic weapon he needed to carve was the Horn of the True Spirit, which was a treasure from Jiao Daoren's Horn of the True Spirit. Naturally, this speed could be described as terrible. Fortunately, Lu Ping still had the cloud sail. This first calamity defensive spirit treasure not only had a miraculous effect on protecting a practitioner's divine will, but it also had a good effect on enhancing a practitioner's divine will. Thus, when Lu Ping was carving this sword of the true spirit, he could finally increase his speed a little. There was a small copper furnace beside him, which was burning with the most precious soul incense, one of the 3 great incenses in the cultivation world. From time to time, Lu Ping would throw a soul-nourishing pill refined from the soul-devouring crystal of the devil into his mouth to replenish the divine will that he had consumed. This was a long and painful process. Using the divine will carving technique was not only to use the divine will to carve the magic weapon and imitate the treasured prohibitions. More importantly, during the process of using this secret method, one would have to concentrate their mind as a knife to carve. While carving the divine will knife on the horn of the true spirit, it was also carving on the divine will. This pain accompanied the whole process of the sword of the true spirit. 10 years to refine a flying sword. The soul-nourishing pill had already been used up, and the dozens of soul-nourishing incense had also been used up. He had no choice but to use the calming incense as a replacement. As for the calming incense, it was practically useless to Lu Ping. Even so, when he saw the amount of calming incense decreasing rapidly, Lu Ping had no choice but to summon Lu Taohua from Kongming Island. He had her return to the House of Gold to cut down a frightening spirit tree and dig out its roots to make the soul-nourishing incense. Perhaps it was because Lu Taohua was from the spirit demon clan, but she was very good at this. 10 years later, Lu Ping finally used his divine will to carve the horn of the true spirit into a 1-meter-long flying sword. On the body of the sword, the 9 talismans coincidentally formed a strange dragon with the body of a snake, the legs of a crocodile, the claws of an eagle, the tail of a fish, the ears of a cow, and the mane of a horse. However, the horn on its head was missing. At this moment, the last stroke of the 9 talismans gathered at the eyes of the strange dragon. As long as Lu Ping finished the last stroke, the 9 talismans would instantly connect and be activated at the same time. This was the uniqueness of the sword of the true spirit. Jiao Daoren's 9 talismans were not like other magic treasures, where the 9 talismans were stacked one by one. Instead, the 9 talismans had to be carved at the same time and be activated at the same time. This would allow the sword of the true spirit to step into the realm of a spirit-nurturing magic treasure. Lu Ping took a deep breath. After 10 years of perseverance and suffering, at the last moment, his divine will burst forth like a flood. The last stroke of the 9 talismans was immediately completed, and the strange dragon on the body of the sword moved. The spirituality of the spirit-nurturing magic treasure was activated at the same time. Although this newly formed flying sword had not been tested by the lightning tribulation, the spirituality of the sword was so strong that Linglong, the cloud sail, and the other spirit treasures avoided it. The 7 thunder gem calabash was surrounded by lightning and once again turned into a lightning cocoon. The thin water sword and the water serene sword of incorporeal sword vibrated at the same time, as if they were welcoming the birth of their own kind, and also as if they were paying respect to their king. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.